My name is Victor Dalton. I'm 68 years old. And this is the story of how a single gift from my estranged son almost ended my life, tore apart everything I thought I knew about family, and forced me to face the darkest betrayal a father can endure. It began on the morning of my birthday. Not a milestone, not one of those big round numbers people throw parties for. Just 68. A quiet number. My house was quiet too, the kind of quiet that presses against the walls until it feels heavier than sound itself. I had made a pot of coffee, the kind Linda used to love before the heart attack took her from me 6 years ago. The smell didn't comfort me anymore. It just reminded me that her chair across the table would stay empty. That's when I saw the package. It was sitting on my porch when I opened the door to fetch the morning paper, wrapped in a brown box with no sender's name. No balloons, no streamers, no cheerful handwriting like Linda's used to have. Just a small white envelope taped to the side with 2 words scrawled in blue ink, "Happy Birthday." The handwriting was like a blow to the chest. My son's. Ethan's. I hadn't seen him in 3 years. We hadn't spoken since the Thanksgiving before last. Not because of one big fight, but because silence had slowly spread between us like rot in the beams of a house. At first, he skipped dinners. Then he stopped answering calls. Before long, holidays passed with his chair empty. And yet, here was his handwriting, standing in front of me like a ghost wearing ink. I carried the box inside, sat it on the kitchen table, and stared at it for too long. Eventually, curiosity forced me to slice it open. Inside was a bottle of whiskey, not just any bottle, but the kind you see locked behind glass at liquor stores, the kind that costs more than my monthly grocery bill. Deep green label, gold lettering, and a wax seal so smooth it looked poured by hand. It gleamed like it was holding fire inside. And yet, Ethan knew I couldn't drink. He'd sat beside my hospital bed 3 years earlier, pretending to scroll his phone while the doctor listed every forbidden thing after my heart attack: no red meat, no cigars, no whiskey. Especially no whiskey. He knew. And still, here it was. I ran my thumb over the seal, remembering how whiskey used to be part of my evenings. A single glass on the porch with Linda, the crickets singing in the Missouri dusk. That life ended with her. I hadn't touched a drop since. So why send me this? I didn't open it. Instead, I thought of Robert Carson, my daughter-in-law's father, Ethan's father-in-law. A good man, steady and practical. The kind who never shows up empty-handed and fixes a roof before you even ask. If anyone deserved a fine bottle of whiskey, it was Robert. By mid-afternoon, I had buckled the bottle into the passenger seat of my Chevy, like it was too precious to let roll around. The October sun slanted across the fields as I drove to Robert's white clapboard house. He greeted me at the door, saw the bottle, and raised his brows. "From Ethan?" he asked. "Yeah," I said. "Figured you'd enjoy it more than I would." He took it carefully, read the label, and whistled. "This is the kind of thing you put away for a special night." "Then make tonight special," I told him. He grinned, and I left with the warm feeling that at least the bottle wouldn't gather dust on my shelf. But that warmth didn't last. That evening, the phone rang. It was Ethan. "Happy birthday, Dad," he said, just a beat too late to sound natural. "Did you get my gift?" "I did. What did you think?" "It's a nice bottle," I said truthfully. I passed it along to Robert. Thought he'd get more use out of it. Silence. Not static. Not a dropout. Just silence. Long and heavy. Then his voice, cool to steel. "You gave it to Robert?" "That's right." There was an exhale, slow and deliberate. Then the line went dead. My gut tightened, not from the pot roast I'd eaten alone, but from something deeper. Something about his tone, his pause, the sharpness in his voice when he asked if I'd tried it. I didn't sleep well that night. And the next morning, the phone rang again. This time it was Robert's wife, Linda Carson. Her voice was tight, trembling. "Victor," she said. "Robert's in the hospital. He collapsed this morning. The doctors think it might be poisoning." The coffee mug slipped from my hand and shattered across the floor. Poisoning. And just like that, the bottle wasn't just a bottle anymore. It was the beginning of a nightmare I never saw coming. When Linda Carson's words landed in my ear, I thought I had misheard her. Poisoning? Robert? It didn't make sense. He'd been fine the day before, grinning as he held that bottle, teasing me that we'd find a reason to celebrate. A man doesn't collapse out of nowhere. But her voice left no room for doubt. "They're running tests," she said, the sound of beeping monitors faint behind her. "He was fine last night, Victor. We had dinner, a single glass from that bottle you brought him. And then this morning, he couldn't stand. He was pale, shaking. I called the ambulance. They think it might be something in what he drank." My throat went dry. I gripped the counter so hard my knuckles whitened. My eyes flicked to the empty space on the table where the whiskey had sat less than 24 hours ago. "Linda," I said slowly, forcing my words through a tightening chest. "That bottle. Ethan sent it to me. For my birthday. I couldn't drink it, so I gave it to Robert." There was a long pause. I could hear her breathing, short and ragged. Do you think it could have been?" "I don't know." The truth burned my tongue. I don't know anything yet. But I knew enough. Enough to feel a cold, twisting certainty in the pit of my stomach. After we hung up, I stood in the kitchen staring at nothing. The October light through the blinds had turned pale, flat, lifeless. The air itself felt wrong. I moved like a sleepwalker to the trash bin. Something white caught my eye near the bottom, half buried beneath onion skins and coffee grounds. A small plastic vial, no label. Just a faint dusting of powder clinging inside. I didn't remember throwing it away. I lifted it carefully, turning it in my hands. The cap was screwed on tight. I stared at it for a long time, my heart thumping harder than it should. Then I went to the fridge. On the middle shelf, behind the milk, sat a mason jar with a splash of amber liquid. Whiskey. Left over from when I'd poured Robert a taste before handing him the bottle. I had no memory of keeping it, but there it was. Half a cup of truth sitting in glass. My hands shook as I set it on the counter beside the vial. There was only one man I could call. Gary. We'd served together 30 years back. A wiry fellow with steady eyes who'd made a career in veterinary sciences after leaving the military. These days, he ran a small diagnostic lab on the edge of town. He owed me a favor. Years ago, I'd pulled his truck out of a snow-choked ditch during a blizzard when no one else could reach him. Men like us don't forget debts. When he answered the phone, I didn't bother with pleasantries. "Gary," I said, voice low. "I need you to test something for me." "Test what?" "Whiskey. And maybe, something else." He didn't ask more. Just told me to meet him after closing. That evening, I drove out to his lab with the mason jar wrapped in a paper bag on the seat beside me, the white vial in my pocket. The air outside was sharp, the kind of October cold that smells like burned leaves. Gary met me in the parking lot, lab coat thrown over a sweatshirt. He looked at the bag in my hands, his mouth tightening. "This the kind of thing I'm going to regret?" he asked. "Just tell me what's in it," I said. He nodded, took the bag, and disappeared inside. I sat in my truck with the engine running, staring at the darkening sky. My thoughts kept circling the same track, Ethan's voice on the phone, the long pause when I told him I gave the bottle to Robert, the sharp edge when he repeated Robert's name. Something was wrong. Something deliberate. The next afternoon, Gary called. His voice was heavy. Victor, you're not going to like this. My stomach clenched. Tell me. There's something in the whiskey. White snake root. In the right dose, it can stop a man's heart. And what I found in that jar, it wasn't by accident. It was mixed in, measured. The phone felt like it weighed 10 pounds. Robert drank this. Gary's silence was answer enough. Finally, he asked, "You didn't?" "No." He let out a slow breath. "Then you dodged a bullet, old friend." But Robert, he might not be so lucky. I closed my eyes. White snake root. I'd heard the name before, back when I was younger. It was the same plant that killed Abraham Lincoln's mother. Farmers in these parts used to call it milk sickness because cows that ate it would poison anyone who drank their milk. And now it was in a bottle of whiskey my son had given me. I hung up and sat at the kitchen table, the house silent around me. There's a sound worse than a phone ringing in the middle of the night. It's the phone ringing when you already know, deep down, the news will be bad. And as I stared at the mason jar and the empty vial, I knew the gift my son had sent me wasn't a gift at all. It was a message. A warning. Or worse, a plan. I thought about the years between us, the silence, the dinners skipped, the holidays missed. I thought about his cold eyes at the last Thanksgiving we'd shared, the way he'd muttered as he left, "One day, Dad, you'll regret choosing him over me." I hadn't understood what he meant then. But now the pieces were starting to slide into place. Robert was lying in a hospital bed. Poisoned. And my son's gift had nearly taken us both. I didn't waste time. The moment Gary confirmed what was in the whiskey, I grabbed my jacket from the back of the chair, slid my keys off the hook, and headed for St. Luke's. The drive into town was all stoplights and empty intersections, the kind of late morning where the sun is bright but gives no warmth. Hospitals all smell the same, a sterile bite of bleach and burnt coffee. The light is too white, as if they're trying to scrub the shadows out of living itself. A volunteer at the front desk pointed me to Robert's room. My boots clicked too loud on the linoleum as I walked down the hall, past doors cracked open, past families clutching paper cups of coffee like lifelines. When I finally stepped inside, my chest tightened. Robert didn't look like the man who'd climbed my roof without being asked, or the one who split wood in the summer just for the joy of sweating through a flannel shirt. He looked smaller, washed out. His skin was pale, his lips dry, his chest rising under a thin hospital blanket in a rhythm that didn't sound steady. Beside him sat his wife, Linda, her hands clasped at her chest, not in prayer but in desperation, like if she held on tight enough she could keep him anchored. "Victor," she said, standing quickly, her voice breaking. "Thank you for coming." I swallowed hard. My throat felt raw. "How is he?" "They're trying to stabilize his heart rhythm." She looked back at Robert, her eyes glassy. "The doctors said they found signs of a plant toxin in his system. They're still running tests, but..." I didn't let her finish. I already knew. I stepped closer to the bed. Robert's mouth was parted slightly, his hair fallen across his forehead in a way that made him look younger and more fragile at the same time. I reached out, not to touch, just to steady myself against the rail. "Did he eat anything unusual last night?" I asked quietly. Linda shook her head. "No. Just dinner. We both had a glass from that bottle you brought." Her eyes found mine. "He said it was the nicest whiskey he'd ever tasted. He wanted to save the rest for a special occasion." The words twisted in my gut. "Linda," I said firmly. "You need to tell the doctors exactly that. That it was new, unopened. And tell them I can get them a small leftover sample from the same bottle." Her hand fluttered toward mine, hesitated, then gripped the rail again. "Victor, what is this? Do you think?" "I don't know what I think yet," I said, though deep inside, I already knew more than I could admit aloud. "But I'm going to find out." Before she could ask more, the door opened and a doctor stepped in, a man in his 50s with a face that had long since learned how not to react. He explained, in practiced tones, about enzymes, heart rhythms, toxins. He didn't know much yet. He didn't have to. I'd already heard the truth from Gary. When he left, Linda sat again, her shoulders sagging. I promised her I'd call the moment I had more information she could use. She nodded, but the nod had no weight. She wasn't nodding for me, she was nodding because it was something to do besides break down. I stepped out of the room, jaw tight, hands jammed into my jacket pockets. The automatic doors at the end of the hall slid open, and cold October air slapped me across the face. In the parking lot, I sat in my truck, the key halfway turned in the ignition. I caught my reflection in the rearview mirror. A man with lines deeper than last year. A man who looked like he'd already been broken once. I whispered the words out loud just to hear them in the air, white snakeroot. They sounded ugly, deliberate. On the drive home, I barely noticed the houses, the mailboxes, the kids raking leaves with their fathers. The world kept spinning as if it hadn't just tilted under me. At home, I went straight to the refrigerator. The mason jar was still there, its amber liquid curling in the glass when I tilted it. To the naked eye, it looked harmless. But then, the worst things usually do. I put the jar on the counter beside the little vial I'd pulled from the trash. I stared at them until my pulse started to race. Something was missing. I yanked the trash lid up again. The bag had been shifted, put back wrong side out. The vial was gone. I froze. I hadn't touched it since setting it down. That meant someone had been here. I looked at the deadbolt on the door, locked, just like I'd left it. The windows, all latched. I'd kept no spare keys under rocks or mats. I wasn't careless like that. But still, someone had been inside my home. I took a long breath, not panic, panic is loud and stupid. I needed something quiet and sharp. I picked up the phone and called Gary. "It's gone," I said when he answered. "What is?" "The vial. The one I told you about. Someone took it out of my trash." Gary didn't waste time telling me I might be mistaken. He knew me too well for that. "Victor," he said slowly, "you need to loop in law enforcement. That vial was proof of handling. You can't ignore this." "I know," I said. "I'll do it. And Gary, don't worry. I'm not sleeping on this." I hung up and made coffee I didn't want. Then I sat at the table with a yellow legal pad, steadying myself with the act of writing. I drew a line down the center. On the left, I wrote, "What I know." On the right, "What I can prove." On the left. Ethan sent the bottle. Ethan asked if I'd tried it. Ethan's tone changed when I said I gave it to Robert. The whiskey tested positive for white snakeroot. The vial disappeared. On the right. Gary's lab results. The mason jar sample. The call from Ethan, word for word. I stared at the two columns. The bridge between them wasn't built yet. But bridges don't build themselves, you have to lay the beams, one at a time. I reached into the drawer and pulled out an old digital recorder, scuffed from years of use. Checked the batteries. Still half full. I slid it into the inside pocket of my jacket. Its weight against my chest reminded me to keep breathing. By noon, I was pulling into Ethan's neighborhood. His house looked like every other one on the block, neat siding, brass numbers, perfect lawn. His truck sat in the driveway, cleaner than mine had ever been. I walked up and knocked. He opened the door, surprise flickering across his face before it settled into calculation, then into a smile he thought looked warm. "Dad," he said. "This is unexpected." "Is it?" I asked, stepping inside without waiting. The air smelled of lemon cleaner, the counter spotless. 3 bottles of bourbon lined up neatly by the sink, soldiers waiting for orders. None of them the whiskey he'd sent me. I heard about Robert, Ethan said, shutting the door. Scary. Leah's with him now. The doctors think it might be a virus. Is that what they think? I kept my tone flat. That's what they said, he replied smoothly. I stepped closer to the counter, ran a finger along the rim of an empty glass sitting there. Then I looked at him. Did you try the bottle you sent me? I asked. He laughed softly, too softly. The whole point was for you to enjoy it. You know, for your birthday. You know I don't drink anymore. He shrugged. People change. Robert liked it, I said casually. Said his favorite pour was the one from the middle shelf, the single malt. He blinked. Just once. Slower than a reflex. Funny thing was, I'd never told him where that bottle sat. For a fraction of a second, his whole body went still, like an animal hearing a twig snap in the woods. Then he shook his head with a rehearsed laugh. You must have told me. You get chatty when you're sentimental. I didn't. We held each other's eyes. I could feel the recorder in my pocket, steady as a heartbeat. Goodbye, Ethan, I said finally. Dad, he said, but I didn't turn back. I walked out, the October air sharp against my face. In the truck, I pressed stop on the recorder. The red light blinked off. I set it on the seat beside me, a witness I might have to call later. My hands were steady. My head was not. And for the first time, I admitted to myself what I hadn't dared put in writing. My son wanted me dead. By the time I pulled into the sheriff's office, my gut felt like it had swallowed gravel. The building sat on the edge of town, red brick with a weathered flag flapping from a pole out front. I'd been in and out of there more times than I could count over the years, traffic tickets, giving statements when neighbors reported deer poachers, once to identify a kid who'd stolen my tools. But this time was different. This time, I wasn't sure if I was walking in as a father or as a witness. Detective Reyes met me in the lobby. I hadn't known him well before this, just seen him around. Mid-40s, hair cropped close, eyes sharp but tired. The kind of man who measured twice before cutting once. Victor, he said, extending a hand. I heard about Robert. How's he doing? Fighting, I said, gripping his hand. That's what he's always done. He nodded solemnly. Come on back. His office was small, cluttered but not messy. Case files stacked like miniature towers, a corkboard on the wall dotted with notes and photographs. He gestured for me to sit. I lowered myself into the chair and felt the recorder in my pocket press against my ribs like a loaded gun. You said on the phone you had something I needed to hear, Reyes said. I didn't answer right away. My hand hovered over the inside of my jacket. I thought about Ethan at the kitchen counter, the half-smile that wasn't real, the pause when I mentioned Robert. My son. My blood. I pulled out the recorder and set it on his desk. This is from earlier today, I said. Conversation with my boy. He raised his eyebrows. You recorded your own son? I leaned forward, elbows on my knees. Detective, I've been a lot of things in my life. A worker, a father, a neighbor people could count on. But I'm not crazy. And I'm not imagining what's happening. I need someone else to hear it. Someone who can't be accused of bias. Reyes studied me for a moment, then clicked play. The sound filled the room, Ethan's voice, mine. The easy greetings, the shift in tone, the part about the whiskey bottle, Robert, the slip about the middle shelf. When it ended, Reyes sat back in his chair, silent. His jaw flexed once. Twice. Well? I asked finally, my throat dry. It's concerning, he said carefully. But you know how this works, Victor. A slip of the tongue isn't a confession. And a recorder in your pocket doesn't prove intent. A defense lawyer would tear it apart. I clenched my fists. The whiskey tested positive for white snakeroot. My friend at the lab confirmed it. That bottle came from Ethan. That's not an accident. Reyes's eyes flicked to the side, then back to me. Do you have a copy of the test results? Not official ones yet. But I can get them. Good. Because what you're suggesting, he stopped, then started again, lowering his voice. Victor, you're talking about your own son. That's not something I can treat lightly. And it's not something I can move on without hard evidence. If you're right, we'll need a trail, receipts, fingerprints, maybe even surveillance. Something that ties him directly to the poison. I pressed my palms against my knees. And if I'm wrong? He didn't answer. For a long minute, the only sound in the room was the hum of the old radiator. Here's what I can do, Reyes said finally. I'll open a quiet inquiry. No names on paper yet. I'll request tox screens from the hospital on Robert. If they confirm white snakeroot, that gives us leverage. But until then, you need to sit tight. No confronting Ethan again. No tipping him off. I thought of Ethan's calm smile, the way his eyes sharpened when he thought no one was looking. Detective, he's already suspicious. He knew about the shelf placement of the bottle. He's covering his tracks. Then let him, Reyes said, his tone firm. Sometimes the more someone covers, the more they leave behind. But if you go barging in again, you'll scare him into silence. Or worse. The weight of "or worse" sank into me. I nodded slowly. All right. But you call me the moment you hear something. You'll be the first to know. I stood, the recorder back in my pocket. As I reached the door, Reyes added quietly, Victor. I don't envy you. If what you're saying is true, this'll tear your family apart. I didn't look back when I answered. It already has. The sky had clouded over by the time I drove home, a low gray pressing down on the hills. I parked, killed the engine, and just sat there in the silence of the truck cab. I thought about the first time I ever held Ethan. He was small, screaming, fists balled tighter than seemed possible. I'd kissed the top of his head and whispered promises, that I'd protect him, guide him, give him a better life than I'd had. And now here I was, recording him like a stranger, handing his words to a detective like evidence from a crime scene. Inside, the house felt colder than usual. I set my jacket on the chair, poured myself a glass of water, and stared at the half-empty mason jar still sitting on the counter. The poison wasn't just in the whiskey. It was in my bloodline. That night, I couldn't sleep. Every creak of the house sounded like someone slipping in through the door. Every gust of wind across the windows felt like a warning. I lay awake until my body gave up, and when I finally drifted off, I dreamed of Robert gasping for air, his face turning pale, while Ethan watched silently from the corner of the room. The next morning, my phone rang before sunrise. It was Linda. Victor, she said, her voice raw. Robert, he made it through the night. But the doctors confirmed something. They said it wasn't a virus. They found trace compounds consistent with toxic plants. They're calling in specialists. I sat on the edge of the bed, my pulse hammering. Linda, listen to me. Don't let anyone, and I mean anyone, bring him food or drink that hasn't been cleared. Not even family. You understand? Yes, she whispered. I understand. After we hung up, I dialed Reyes. He answered on the second ring. Detective. It's confirmed. The hospital found toxins in Robert's system. He exhaled slowly. All right. That gives us a starting point. I'll reach out to the hospital, get the report. In the meantime, keep yourself steady. We're just beginning. Just beginning. I set the phone down, staring at the morning light creeping across the floorboards. Somewhere out there, my son was moving pieces I couldn't see yet. But I'd seen enough to know one thing. If Ethan thought I was going to roll over and die quietly, he'd forgotten who raised him. Detective Reyes kept his word. By Monday afternoon, he called me back. "Victor, I spoke with the toxicology department. They confirmed white snakeroot derivatives in Robert's system. Same compounds you mentioned." I gripped the phone tighter. "So it's official now." "It's official," Reyes said. "But listen carefully. This doesn't tell us who administered it. It just tells us someone did. That means Robert is officially a victim of poisoning, and we treat it as criminal. Which also means..." His pause cut through me sharper than the words. "Which means your son is no longer just a suspicion. He's a potential subject of an investigation. I need you to prepare yourself for that." The air in the room seemed to thicken. "What's the next step?" "We look for connections. Did Ethan purchase anything suspicious? Did he research toxins? We'll check pharmacies, nurseries, farm supply stores. People don't just stumble onto white snakeroot unless they know what they're looking for. And if he covered his tracks? Then we dig deeper. But you need to keep playing the part, Victor. Pretend nothing's wrong. Keep him talking. Sometimes the hardest evidence comes from casual slips when they think they're safe." I agreed, though the thought of pretending normalcy around Ethan made my stomach churn. That evening, Ethan came by the house again. I heard his car before I saw him, the steady hum of his SUV pulling into the drive. He carried a bag of groceries, his smile painted on like it had been sketched with chalk. "Dad," he said warmly, setting the bag on the counter. "Brought some things. Thought you might need help around here." I eyed the bag. Apples, bread, a carton of milk. Ordinary things. Too ordinary. "You didn't have to," I said, keeping my voice even. "Of course I did." He began unpacking, his movements smooth, almost rehearsed. "Family takes care of family. Right?" The word stung. I poured myself coffee, watching him carefully. "Doctors found something," I said, testing. "Not a virus. Some kind of toxin. They're running more tests." His hand stilled for the briefest second on the loaf of bread. Then he resumed, casual. "Toxin? That's odd. Any idea how Robert could have come into contact with something like that?" "I don't know," I said slowly. "That's what they're trying to figure out." He looked up at me, expression open, almost concerned. Too concerned. "Scary stuff. But he's strong. He'll pull through." I nodded, but inside my chest, suspicion twisted like barbed wire. Later that night, after Ethan left, I checked the bag of groceries he'd brought. Nothing looked tampered with. No broken seals, no odd smells. But still, I couldn't shake the feeling that every item he touched carried a hidden threat. I boxed it all up and set it on the porch for the raccoons to deal with. I wasn't taking chances. 2 days later, Reyes called again. "I pulled transaction histories," he said. Something caught my eye. 3 weeks ago, Ethan bought a gardening book online. Title, Deadly Flora of North America. Not illegal, but peculiar. I clenched my jaw. That's not a coincidence. There's more, Reyes continued. A local nursery owner remembers him asking about wild plants. Claimed he wanted to help a friend with botany. The kicker? He asked specifically about white snakeroot. My blood ran cold. "Victor, this is enough to push for a warrant if we play it right," Reyes said. "But I need your consent to move forward. Once I do, this won't be quiet anymore. He'll know he's under scrutiny." I leaned against the wall, closing my eyes. My son's face flashed in my mind, the boy who used to sit on my shoulders at the fair, who once cried when his dog got hit by a car. How had we come to this? But then Robert's pale face surfaced, the tubes and monitors, the doctor's grim eyes. "Do it," I said. My voice was steady, though my heart wasn't. "Get the warrant." That night, I dreamed of Ethan again. Not the little boy, but the man he'd become. He stood at the foot of my bed, hands in his pockets, smiling in the dark. "You should have left it alone, Dad," he whispered. I woke drenched in sweat, heart pounding like a hammer. The following day, Reyes met me in a diner outside town. He slid a folder across the table. "Warrants approved. We'll search his place tomorrow morning. Phones, computers, anything that ties him to the poison." I stared at the folder but didn't touch it. "And if you find nothing?" "Then we keep digging," Reyes said. "But I have a feeling we won't come up empty." Before I could answer, a shadow fell across our booth. "Morning, Dad." My heart nearly stopped. Ethan stood there, smiling down at us, a cup of coffee in his hand. His eyes flicked from me to Reyes, sharp and quick, like a blade sliding across a whetstone. "Detective," he said smoothly. "Didn't expect to see you here. You two old friends?" My tongue stuck to the roof of my mouth. Reyes didn't flinch. "Just grabbing breakfast. Small town, easy to bump into people." Ethan nodded slowly, then looked back at me. "Well, don't let me interrupt. Enjoy your meal." He walked away, but I could feel his gaze burning into my back until the diner door jingled shut behind him. Reyes exhaled softly. "He suspects something." "He knows," I whispered. "He knows we're watching." Reyes tapped the folder. "Then tomorrow can't come soon enough." When I got home that evening, my front door was unlocked. I knew I'd locked it when I left. Every nerve in my body went taut. I stepped inside, moving slowly, listening. The house smelled faintly of aftershave, Ethan's brand. Nothing seemed out of place. No drawers pulled, no furniture shifted. But on the kitchen counter, sitting alone, was a glass of water. Half full. And next to it, a note. "Stay out of this, Dad. For your own good." My hands trembled as I crumpled the note. This wasn't suspicion anymore. This was war. The morning of the search broke gray and cold. I drove behind the unmarked police SUV, my palms sweating against the steering wheel. Every mile closer to Ethan's apartment felt like a betrayal, like I was marching my own son toward a gallows. Reyes briefed me the night before, "You can't be inside when we search. Chain of custody, procedure. Stay in the car. Let us handle it." So I waited, engine idling, as Reyes and two uniformed officers approached Ethan's door. They knocked firmly. "Police. We have a warrant." Silence. Then, footsteps. Slow, deliberate. Ethan opened the door in sweatpants and a black t-shirt, hair tousled like he'd just woken. But his eyes, they were sharp. Awake. "Morning, detective," he said evenly. "What's this about?" "Step aside, sir. We have a warrant to search the premises." Ethan's mouth curved into a small, amused smile. "Of course you do." He stepped back, sweeping an arm dramatically. "Be my guest." They went through everything. Cabinets, closets, desk drawers, bathroom shelves. I sat in my car, staring at the window blinds, every second dragging like a year. After nearly an hour, Reyes emerged, carrying a small box sealed in evidence tape. He walked straight to my car and leaned in. "Found something." My throat tightened. "What?" He opened the box just enough for me to see. Inside were several vials, each carefully labeled with plant names: aconite, foxglove, white snakeroot. And beneath them, a notebook. Recipes, Reyes said grimly. Formulas, measurements, effects. My stomach churned. That's damning. More than damning, Reyes said. This ties him directly to poison preparation. Lab will confirm contents, but I'd bet my badge it matches what we found in Robert's system. I stared at the box, my mind splitting in two. Half of me wanted to believe it, to accept that Ethan had done this and justice was finally closing in. The other half screamed that it was too neat, too perfect. And then Ethan appeared at the window, arms crossed, watching us with a faint smirk. Like he already knew how this would play out. That evening, Reyes called me again. Victor, something's off. I sat forward in my chair. What do you mean? The vials we found, lab says they're empty. Completely clean. No residue. Like they were washed and never used. I swallowed. But the notebook. Handwriting analysis isn't in yet. Could be his. Could be forged. I've been at this long enough to know when something feels staged. And Victor, he hesitated. That apartment was too tidy. Too arranged. It felt like he wanted us to find those things. My skin prickled. To set us up? Or to send a message, Reyes said quietly. He's playing a game, and he's 2 moves ahead. 2 days later, Robert took a sharp turn. His heart rate spiked, his breathing faltered, alarms blaring in the ICU. Doctors swarmed his bed. I stood in the corner, frozen, praying, watching them work. When the chaos settled, a nurse explained. He had a seizure. His body's under immense stress from the toxins. We've stabilized him, but he's not out of danger. I stepped into the hallway, shaking. And there, leaning against the wall like he owned the place, was Ethan. Rough night, huh, Dad? His tone was casual, almost sympathetic. I snapped. You did this to him. He raised his brows, feigning innocence. Careful. That sounds like an accusation. You poisoned him, I hissed. Don't deny it. Ethan tilted his head, his smirk widening. If you really believe that, wouldn't I be in handcuffs right now? Instead of you whispering in a hospital hallway? I wanted to hit him. My fists trembled at my sides. But I didn't move. He leaned closer, voice low. You're smart enough to know proving it and knowing it are 2 very different things. And then he walked away, leaving me trembling with rage. That night, I found something in my mailbox. A flash drive. No note. I took it inside, plugged it into my laptop with shaking hands. There was only one file. A video. I clicked play. The footage showed a small, dimly lit room. On a table sat a glass of water. Ethan entered the frame, smiling at the camera. Hello, Dad, he said. If you're watching this, it means you, or your detective friend, are getting too close. He picked up the glass, swirled it. Funny thing about poison. People think it's all about dosage. But really, it's about timing. The right drop, at the right moment, changes everything. He set the glass down, leaned closer to the lens. His eyes gleamed. You're looking for evidence. But evidence is a trick. A magician's hand. I decide what you see. I decide when you see it. He chuckled softly. And if you don't stop digging, Dad, maybe next time it won't be Robert who drinks the wrong glass. The video cut to black. I sat frozen, bile rising in my throat. He knew everything. The search, the investigation, Reyes. He was toying with us. And now, he was threatening me directly. I called Reyes immediately, my voice shaking as I described the video. Don't delete it, Reyes ordered. We'll need it. But Victor, this confirms something important. What? That he's not just reckless. He's deliberate. He's escalating. Which means, his voice hardened. We have to assume he'll try again. I closed my eyes, gripping the phone. Then we stop him. Whatever it takes. There was a long silence on the line. Then Reyes said, "Victor, you need to prepare yourself. This won't end cleanly. One way or another, you're going to lose something. The question is, what are you willing to sacrifice?" His words echoed in my head long after the call ended. I stared at the blank laptop screen where Ethan's face had just smirked at me, and for the first time, I wondered if this wasn't just about Robert. Maybe it was about me. Maybe Ethan's real target had always been me. The nights grew longer after the video. I couldn't sleep without replaying Ethan's smirk in the glow of my laptop. His words looped in my skull like a curse. I decide what you see. I decide when you see it. For years, I'd been blind to who my son really was. Now he was stripping away every illusion I'd clung to. Robert's condition only added to the weight. He drifted in and out of consciousness, his once strong body reduced to fragile bones and shallow breaths. Every beep of the monitors felt like a countdown I couldn't stop. And then Ethan called me. Not a text, not an email. A phone call. "Dad." His voice was calm, warm almost. Like we were having a Sunday chat. I clenched the phone tighter. "What do you want?" "Only to talk. You've been avoiding me." "I've been avoiding a murderer." There was a pause, then a soft chuckle. "That's harsh. You think I poisoned Robert. But have you actually considered the possibility that maybe I saved him?" My chest tightened. Saved him? He's in a hospital bed fighting for his life. "Yes," Ethan said smoothly. "But think. Robert's been destroying you, hasn't he? Draining your company, tarnishing your name. Without me stepping in, how long before he dragged you down completely? You're twisting this." "Am I?" His tone sharpened. "Or are you just afraid to admit I did what you couldn't? That you wanted him gone but lacked the courage to act?" I slammed my fist against the desk. "I never wanted this. I never wanted my son to be a killer." There was silence on the line, then Ethan's voice dropped, low and deliberate. "Funny, Dad. Because I never wanted my father to be a coward." The call ended. The next day, Reyes met me in his office. He looked tired, shadows under his eyes. He slid a folder across the desk. "We've been combing through Ethan's financials, work records, call logs. He's clean. Too clean. Like he's scrubbing behind himself as he goes." I opened the folder. Every page was neat, precise, boring. Ethan had left nothing to chance. Reyes leaned back. "Victor, we have to face reality. We may never get enough to put him in prison the traditional way." I stared at him. "So what are you saying? We give up?" "No," Reyes said quietly. "I'm saying you may need to think about what justice looks like, outside the courtroom." My throat dried. "You're asking me to choose between my sons." Reyes didn't answer. He didn't have to. His silence was enough. That evening, I sat by Robert's bed. His eyes fluttered open briefly, unfocused. His lips parted, barely forming words. "Dad." I leaned close, tears stinging. "I'm here, son." Why me?" His voice cracked like dry wood. I squeezed his hand gently. "Because you're strong. Because you can fight this." But he shook his head weakly. "Not strong enough. Ethan. Ethan's stronger." His eyes rolled shut again, and he slipped back into unconsciousness. The words hit me like a blow. "Ethan's stronger. Was it true? Had my failure as a father created a son who could bend us all beneath his will? The following night, another package arrived. This time, it wasn't a video. It was a photograph. Me. Sitting beside Robert's bed. Ethan had taken it without me noticing. On the back, in neat handwriting, was a single line. Every move you make, I see. Every breath you take, I decide. My knees nearly buckled. He was inside the hospital. Watching me. I called Reyes immediately, shoving the photo into his hands when he arrived. He studied it, jaw tight. He's escalating again. This isn't just about Robert anymore. He's targeting you. He's hunting me. My voice cracked. Reyes nodded grimly. And predators don't stop until they're put down. 2 nights later, I walked out of the hospital just after midnight, bone-tired. The parking lot was nearly empty, the streetlights casting long shadows across the asphalt. That's when I saw him. Leaning against my car, arms crossed. Ethan. My heart hammered. What are you doing here? He smiled faintly. Waiting for you. I glanced around. No one else was in sight. I could call Reyes right now, I warned. You won't, Ethan said calmly. Because deep down, you don't want me in prison. You want me where I belong, by your side. Protecting the family, securing your legacy. My throat burned. Protecting? You're destroying us. His smile sharpened. No, Dad. I'm the only one who can save us. Robert is weak. Always has been. You know it. But me? I'm strong. I'm ruthless when I need to be. That's what this world requires. That's what you require. He stepped closer, his eyes piercing into mine. Stop fighting me. Accept me. And together, we can be unstoppable. I stared at him, trembling. You're asking me to embrace a monster. Ethan's smile faded into something colder. No, Dad. I'm asking you to embrace your son. He walked past me into the shadows, leaving me shaking beside my car, torn in half. When I got home, Reyes was waiting. He'd let himself in, unannounced, urgency written all over his face. We've been tracking Ethan, he said. Cameras put him near the hospital multiple times. But here's the problem, every time we move in, he's already gone. It's like he knows where we are before we do. I sank into a chair, exhausted. He's everywhere. He's inside my life, my head, my family. I can't fight him anymore. Reyes leaned forward, eyes fierce. You have to fight him. But Victor, you need to understand something. What? This won't end with an arrest. It won't end with a trial. Ethan won't let it. The only way this ends is if someone stops him permanently. And that someone, might have to be you. The words hung between us like a death sentence. I pressed my hands to my face, tears breaking free. I had spent my whole life trying to hold my family together. Now I was being asked to destroy it with my own hands. Reyes's voice softened. Victor, you have to decide. Do you save Robert? Do you save yourself? Or do you save Ethan from himself? Because you can't save all three. I looked up, my vision blurred, my heart broken. And for the first time, I realized Reyes was right. This story wasn't going to end with justice. It was going to end with blood. The following days blurred into each other, heavy with dread. Every time I entered Robert's hospital room, I half expected to find him gone. Every time my phone buzzed, I braced for Ethan's voice, his taunts, his control. I tried to hold on to reason. Tried to tell myself I could still outmaneuver him, that some sliver of law or justice might still work in our favor. But then Ethan showed me just how far ahead he was. It started with another package. Smaller this time. Hand-delivered to my doorstep. Inside was a flash drive. I almost didn't put it in my computer. But my hands shook with both fear and compulsion. The screen came alive with a video feed of Robert's hospital room. Live. I froze. Robert was there, pale, asleep, machines keeping him tethered to life. But the angle, high, hidden, wasn't from hospital cameras. It was Ethan's. And then the screen flickered, and Ethan's face filled it. Calm. Smiling. "Evening, Dad." His voice was silk and venom at once. "I thought it was time we had a little transparency. I wanted you to see what I see. To know I could end Robert's life with the push of a button." My pulse thundered. "What did you do?" His smile widened. "A little something extra in the fore. Remote controlled. Isn't technology marvelous?" "You're lying," I hissed. "Am I?" "Watch closely." He tapped something out of view. A beep echoed from the monitor beside Robert's bed. For one terrifying second, the rhythm of his heartbeat faltered, stuttered. Then steadied again. I nearly collapsed. "See?" Ethan purred. One tap, and Robert feels death breathing on him. Another tap, and it's all over. That's the gift of power. And I hold it, Dad. Not you. "You're a monster," I whispered. "No," Ethan said sharply. "I'm a survivor. And I'm showing you what survival looks like. If you stand with me, Dad, I'll keep Robert alive. He'll wake up, live out his fragile little life. But if you keep siding with Reyes, keep resisting me." He leaned closer to the camera, his eyes unblinking, predatory. "Then I bury him. And you watch." The screen went black. I called Reyes immediately, voice cracking, hands trembling. He came over within the hour, the flash drive still sitting on my desk like a loaded gun. He plugged it in, watched the video, and his jaw tightened until I thought it might snap. "This isn't just psychological anymore," Reyes said. "He's got physical control of Robert's life. That pump, it's been tampered with." I buried my face in my hands. "He's forcing me to choose. Robert's life, or my soul." Reyes leaned against the desk, voice low, urgent. "Victor, listen to me. He's escalating to the final stage. That's what predators do. They isolate you, corner you, then force the kill." My head snapped up. "You're saying he's going to?" "Yes," Reyes cut in. "He's going to demand your loyalty. Not in words, in action. And when that moment comes, you'll have one chance to stop him. One. If you hesitate, Robert's gone. And maybe you too." My stomach churned. "And if I don't hesitate?" Reyes met my eyes. "Then you'll have to do the unthinkable. And live with it forever." That night, I didn't sleep. I sat in the dark, listening to the hum of the house, waiting for Ethan's next move. At 3 a.m., it came. Another call. I answered, my throat raw. "Dad," Ethan said softly, almost tenderly. "You've been so conflicted. I hate to see you like this." "You don't hate it," I rasped. "You feed on it." He chuckled. "Maybe. But you'll thank me soon. I've arranged something special. Tomorrow night. Midnight. Come alone. The old family warehouse by the docks. You remember it." Ice filled my veins. That warehouse hadn't been used in years. It was where Robert and Ethan used to play as boys, running between the crates, pretending to be pirates. "You come," Ethan continued, "and we settle this like men. Face to face. No police, no tricks. Just you and me. You'll understand everything when you arrive." And if I don't? I whispered. The line went silent for a long moment. Then Ethan spoke one final word. Robert. The call ended. The next day dragged like a funeral march. I told Reyes, of course. He wanted to set up surveillance, bring in a full team. But I could see in his eyes he knew the truth. Ethan would expect it. And if Ethan sensed a trap, Robert would pay instantly. This could be the endgame, Reyes warned. If you go, it's not just a meeting. It's a test. And if you fail, you won't get another chance. I nodded slowly, my chest hollow. I know. He put a hand on my shoulder, gripping it hard. Victor, you need to be ready to kill him. The words sat like lead between us. I didn't answer. Because I couldn't. At 11:45 p.m., I stood outside the warehouse. The night air was damp, the harbor fog curling like ghosts around the broken streetlights. Every instinct screamed at me to run, to call Reyes, to do anything but walk inside. But then I thought of Robert. Pale. Fragile. Hooked to wires and machines. His life hanging by Ethan's hand. And I stepped through the door. The warehouse was dim, lit by a single swinging bulb that cast shadows across the empty floor. And there, at the center, stood Ethan. Hands in his pockets. Calm. Smiling. Right on time, Dad. I swallowed hard. What do you want from me? He spread his arms, like welcoming an old friend. Only the truth. I want you to finally admit what you've always known, that I'm the son you need. That Robert is weak. That together, you and I can rule this world. My heart pounded. And if I don't? His smile sharpened. Then Robert dies before sunrise. The air between us vibrated with tension. For the first time, I realized this wasn't about legacy or justice. It wasn't even about Robert. It was about me. Ethan wasn't just trying to prove his strength. He was trying to break me. And if I didn't stop him now, I knew, one way or another, I'd lose everything. The bulb overhead swung slowly, creaking, shadows cutting across Ethan's face like shifting masks. He looked calm. Too calm. Like this was his coronation, not a confrontation. Do you feel it, Dad? He asked, stepping forward. The air? Thick, electric? That's power. It hums in your veins when you're ready to seize it. I kept my stance firm, though my hands twitched with the urge to ball into fists. This isn't power, Ethan. It's terror. You're confusing the two. His eyes glinted. Terror is power. History proves it. Every empire was built on fear. And every empire fell the same way, I shot back. By devouring itself. Ethan's smile thinned. For the first time, a crack in the armor. You've always clung to weakness. To Robert. To the illusion that love holds more weight than dominance. I felt my voice break. Robert isn't weakness. He's humanity. Something you lost long ago. Ethan's jaw tightened. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small black device, sleek, cold. He held it up between two fingers. This, he said softly, is Robert's life. My heart plummeted. You saw the demo, Ethan continued. One press, and the 4 stops. His body will collapse before anyone notices. They'll blame complications. Natural causes. But you'll know it was me. And you'll know it was because you failed. I stepped closer, my voice ragged. Then why haven't you pressed it already? Silence. Because he needed me to break. To choose him. To confess he had won. He paced slowly, circling me like a predator. You think Reyes can save you? Ethan sneered. I've been 10 steps ahead of him from the start. Every time he closes in, I shift the board. He's chasing shadows. But you're real. Flesh, blood, legacy. And you have a choice. His voice dropped to a whisper. Choose me, Dad. Right here. Right now. Say the words. Disown Robert. Claim me as your heir. And I let him live. My throat burned. My son, my real son, was dangling between life and death, tethered to Ethan's madness. I won't play God, I said, trembling. Ethan's eyes narrowed. You already are. Every second you delay, Robert suffers. Don't you hear it? His weak little heart, begging you to save him. And the only path is through me. Suddenly, Ethan hurled the device across the room. It clattered onto a wooden crate with a sharp crack, the light blinking ominously. Go ahead, he roared, his voice echoing through the hollow warehouse. Grab it. Save him. I froze. Isn't that what you want? Ethan taunted, stepping back. To be the hero? To swoop in and rescue your fragile little favorite? I inched toward the crate, every muscle taut. But Ethan's laugh cut through the air like a blade. Do it, he said. And I'll break your neck before you reach it. His stance shifted, ready to strike. It wasn't just a test. It was a trap. If I lunged for the device, he'd kill me. If I stood still, Robert would die. The walls closed in, suffocating. And then Ethan dropped his final card. Tell me, Dad, his voice was smooth again, calm, almost tender. What's it worth to you? Robert's life? Your own? Everything you built? He spread his arms, palms open. You've lived with one foot in the grave for years, clinging to a son who can't carry your name. I'm the only one who can. Say it. Out loud. Say you choose me. My chest heaved. Sweat ran down my spine. I thought of Robert, pale and helpless in that hospital bed. Of Reyes, warning me this moment would come. Of Ethan, once a little boy chasing his brother through the warehouse aisles, laughter echoing like sunlight. Now he was a man twisted by shadows. And I had to decide if I'd let him consume us all. I steadied my voice, though it nearly tore me apart. You think you're offering me a choice, Ethan. But you've already lost. His smile faltered. Careful, Dad. I took a step forward. Power isn't fear. It isn't dominance. It isn't holding death in your hand. Real power is protecting life. Even when it costs you everything. Ethan's hand twitched, his jaw tightening. You're weak, he hissed. No, I said firmly. I'm your father. And I will not let you destroy what's left of this family. The bulb above flickered, shadows slicing across his face. And for the first time, I saw it, not the monster, not the predator, but the boy I'd failed to reach. But the boy was gone in an instant. Ethan lunged, a blur of rage, fists clenched. I braced for impact. Ethan's body slammed into mine with the force of a storm. His fists were a blur, one caught my jaw, the other drove into my ribs. Pain detonated through my chest, but instinct, years of survival, roared awake inside me. I staggered back, blocking the next blow with my forearm, the impact rattling my bones. You can't stop me. Ethan bellowed, eyes blazing. Not anymore. He swung again, wild with fury. I ducked low, his fist grazing my ear, and drove my shoulder into his chest. The breath exploded out of him, but he barely faltered. He came back harder, snarling, teeth bared like an animal. The warehouse became a cage. His grunts, my ragged breath, the scrape of boots on concrete. The blinking device sat on the crate behind him, its tiny light pulsing like Robert's fading heartbeat. Ethan jabbed, fast and brutal. His knuckles cracked against my cheekbone, the world flashing white. Blood filled my mouth. I stumbled but forced myself upright. "You're fighting the wrong enemy," I gasped. "You're my only enemy," he roared. I blocked another punch, the force numbing my arm, and countered with a hook that split his lip. Blood spattered the concrete. He only smiled. "You've got fight left in you," he panted, wiping the blood with the back of his hand. "Good. I want you awake when you finally see me win." He lunged again, catching me around the throat, driving me back into a steel column. My skull rang with the impact. His grip tightened, choking the air from me. "Say it," he hissed, his spit flecking my face. "Say I'm the heir." My vision swam, black edges closing in. My fingers clawed at his wrist, but his strength was terrifying, born of rage and obsession. Through the haze, I forced the words past my strangled throat. "You will never be my son." His scream tore through the warehouse as he squeezed harder. My knees buckled. The light on the device blurred into a single crimson star. But then I remembered Robert. His laughter when he was a boy. His hand gripping mine after the first surgery. His whisper, "Don't give up on me, Dad." With the last surge of strength left in me, I brought my knee up, slamming it into Ethan's ribs. The crack echoed. He grunted, grip loosening just enough for me to wrench free and shove him back. Air rushed into my lungs like fire. I doubled over, gasping, but there was no time. Ethan was already charging again. We collided in the center of the warehouse, fists hammering, bone on bone, blood spattering the floor. Every strike was desperate, primal. Father against son. Legacy against obsession. At last, I caught him, a brutal right hook that sent him sprawling across the concrete. He slid into the crate, the device clattering beside him. For one split second, the path was open. Robert's life. Right there. I lunged. But Ethan's hand shot out, clutching my ankle, yanking me down. I crashed to the floor, the device just inches away. My fingers stretched for it, barely grazing the edge, as Ethan dragged me back. He straddled me, fists pounding, each blow shattering what little strength I had left. "Robert dies," he howled. "If I can't be your heir, then neither of us will have him." My skull throbbed, the world going dim. My hand, still outstretched, brushed the cold metal of the device. Ethan saw it. His eyes widened. And for the first time, fear flickered there. Summoning the last dregs of my will, I closed my fist around the device. Ethan froze. The roles had reversed. My thumb hovered over the button. "You think you hold life and death," I rasped, blood dripping down my chin. "But this was never about you. It was never about me. It was about the family you tried to destroy." Ethan's chest heaved, his fists trembling. "Don't do it," he whispered. "You already did," I said. And then, I pressed. The device beeped once, sharp and final. Ethan's scream tore through the warehouse, a sound of rage, despair, disbelief. But it wasn't Robert's heart that flatlined. Because Reyes had been there first. A hidden door burst open, floodlights blinding the warehouse. Agents poured in, weapons raised. "Ethan Whitmore." Reyes's voice thundered. "It's over." Ethan spun, stunned, betrayed. "No, no, no, no." Reyes's eyes flicked to me, bloodied and broken on the floor, the device clenched in my shaking hand. He gave the faintest nod. "I switched the signal hours ago," Reyes said coldly. "Your brother was never in danger. You've been fighting a ghost." Ethan staggered back, the weight of his delusion collapsing around him. And in that moment, I saw it again, the boy. Lost. Broken. Reaching for something that never existed. He looked at me one last time, his eyes hollow. "You chose wrong, he whispered. Then the agents swarmed him, pinning him to the floor as he thrashed and screamed. I lay there, chest heaving, every bone aching. But I felt it, the first true breath I'd taken in years. Robert was safe. Ethan was finished. But my heart was shattered all the same. The warehouse was suddenly full of noise. Shouts. Metal clattering. Boots striking against the concrete. The agents moved like a tide, swallowing Ethan in their flood of authority and restraint. His curses echoed, guttural and broken, until finally a gag muffled them into silence. I lay sprawled on the floor, the blood on my face sticky, my ribs screaming every time I tried to breathe. The world tilted, spinning between the flicker of overhead lights. But then, through all the chaos, I heard it. Dad? The voice was faint, cracked like dry wood, but it was his. Robert. My eyes snapped open, dragging my broken body upright. Reyes was there, guiding Robert carefully through the chaos, his thin frame propped up by two agents. His face was pale, his lips trembled, but he was alive. Alive. For a moment, the warehouse vanished. The pain vanished. I staggered forward, and Robert fell into my arms. His body was fragile, ribs sharp beneath my trembling hands, but he clung to me like he was drowning. I thought I lost you, I whispered, my throat raw. You almost did, he rasped, tears burning his sunken eyes. But you never gave up on me. I knew you wouldn't. My chest cracked open at his words. For so long, I had lived in shadows, chasing power, chasing control, convincing myself it was for family. But here was my son, the last true piece of my soul, still clinging to me even after all my failures. Behind us, Ethan's howls twisted into laughter, ragged, bitter laughter that chilled every corner of the warehouse. Look at you, he screamed against the gag as agents dragged him away. Crying over your golden boy while I rot in chains. You'll never escape me, father. Never. I turned, still holding Robert, and met Ethan's eyes. What I saw there wasn't a man anymore. It was a storm of hatred and hunger, bottomless and endless. For the first time, I felt no anger in return. Only sorrow. You chose this path, I told him quietly. And now you'll walk it alone. He snarled through the gag, thrashing, but the agents hauled him into the dark until his voice faded into nothing. Later, in the sterile glow of a hospital room, Robert lay hooked to IVs, his chest rising and falling steadily for the first time in weeks. Machines beeped softly, reassuringly. I sat by his bed, my hand wrapped around his. His skin was warm, alive. The doctors said he was still weak, but he had a chance now, a real chance. Reyes stood at the foot of the bed, his usual stern mask softened by a rare flicker of respect. You did what had to be done, he said. I shook my head. No. I failed. I raised two sons. One I saved, and one I lost forever. Reyes's gaze didn't waver. Don't confuse choice with destiny. Ethan made his choice. Robert made his. You gave them both the same chance. His words cut deep, because I wanted to believe them, but guilt weighed heavier than any chain. When Robert finally stirred awake, his first word wasn't about himself. Ethan? The question froze me. He's alive, I said carefully. But he's gone. They took him. Robert's eyes darkened with something I recognized, grief, not for the brother who had nearly killed him, but for the boy who once shared his childhood. I used to dream, he whispered, voice trembling, that one day he'd come back. That we'd be brothers again. I swallowed the knot in my throat. I used to dream that too. The silence between us ached. Finally, Robert squeezed my hand. Then don't let his darkness take you too, he said. That night, I couldn't sleep. I walked the hospital corridors alone, my reflection fractured in the glass windows. For decades, I had believed legacy was about wealth, power, empire. But legacy was sitting in that hospital bed, fighting for breath. Legacy was the tears in my son's eyes when he whispered Dad. Legacy was fragile, human, and fleeting. And I had almost destroyed it. Ethan's voice still haunted me, echoing in my skull. His accusations, his laughter, his hate. He was alive somewhere, locked in a cell, but the truth clawed at me, my blood ran in his veins. My mistakes fed his obsession. That was my curse. My punishment. The next morning, Robert woke stronger. The doctors said he might recover fully with time. I held on to that hope like a drowning man clutching driftwood. When he smiled faintly, I felt something I hadn't in years, peace. But peace was not without shadows. Because I knew Ethan's war wasn't over. The trial moved quickly, faster than anyone expected. Ethan had left too many bodies, too many witnesses, too much blood on his hands. No amount of lawyers, no whispered influence, no remnants of my empire could protect him from the mountain of evidence stacked against him. I sat in the courtroom, hands clasped tightly, listening to the prosecutors list his crimes. Each charge landed like a hammer: extortion, kidnapping, conspiracy, attempted murder. Every word was a mirror held up to my failures as a father. Ethan didn't flinch. Shackled at the wrists, dressed in a stark orange jumpsuit, he sat with the same cold smile etched across his face. His eyes never left me. Not once. And when the judge finally read the sentence, life without parole, Ethan laughed. It wasn't the laugh of a man defeated. It was the laugh of a man who believed he had already won something I couldn't see. Afterward, I went to see him in the holding cell. I shouldn't have, but some twisted part of me needed answers. He was waiting, sitting on the cot, head tilted as if he knew I'd come. "Well, Father," he drawled, his voice thick with mockery. "Here we are. Just like you always wanted, me behind bars, Robert in your arms. The perfect family restored." I stepped closer, the bars between us a cold reminder of how far gone he was. This isn't what I wanted. All I ever wanted was my sons to live, to have a future. Liar. His smile sharpened. You wanted an heir. You wanted a shadow of yourself to carry your empire forward. That was never me, was it? Robert was always the golden child. I was just the storm you couldn't control. My chest tightened. His words weren't entirely false, and that truth twisted the knife deeper. You still have a choice, I said quietly. Even in here. You can let go of this anger. Find peace. Ethan leaned forward, his eyes burning with a fire I didn't recognize anymore. Peace, he whispered, almost tender. Then his face twisted into something feral. You think bars can hold me? You think time will break me? No, Father. I'll rot in this cell and still, I'll haunt you. I'll haunt Robert. Every night, every silence, you'll hear my laughter. I am your legacy, not him. Me. The words clung to me like poison. I wanted to reach through the bars, to shake him, to scream until the walls cracked. Instead, I turned and walked away, leaving his laughter echoing behind me. Robert's recovery was slow but steady. The hospital became our second home for weeks. I read to him. We talked about things I had never bothered to share before, small things, human things. Favorite books. Old regrets. Childhood memories of his mother. Sometimes he smiled, sometimes he wept. But through it all, I realized something: I was finally learning to be a father, even if I was decades too late. Yet at night, when Robert slept, I sat by the window and stared into the city lights. Ethan's words replayed in my head. His voice crawled through my mind like smoke, whispering that he was still out there in the dark, waiting. And maybe he was right. One evening, Robert looked at me with tired but steady eyes. "What now, he asked. What do you mean? With Ethan gone, with the company crumbling, what happens next? The question cut deeper than he knew. The empire I had built brick by bloody brick was unraveling. Partners distanced themselves. Investors pulled out. Whispers of scandal stained every corner of my name. For the first time, I had nothing to offer but the truth. I don't know, I admitted. But maybe that's a good thing. Maybe it's time to build something different. Something honest. Robert squeezed my hand, his touch frail but sure. Then let's do it together. Weeks later, I stood outside the prison once more. Not to see Ethan, but because I needed closure. Through the thick glass of the visiting booth, I watched him. He looked thinner, his eyes wilder, but his smile remained the same. He lifted the phone on his side. Slowly, reluctantly, I lifted mine. Well, Father, Ethan said softly, how does it feel to be free of me? I swallowed hard. I'll never be free of you, Ethan. You're my son. That will never change. For a fleeting moment, his smile faltered. His jaw tightened, his eyes flickered with something almost human. Almost. Then it was gone. Good, he said, leaning closer. Because I'll make sure Robert never is either. I slammed the phone down, heart hammering, bile burning in my throat. Walking out of that prison, I knew one truth with absolute clarity: this war wasn't over. Ethan's body might be caged, but his spirit, his venom, it still seeped into everything I loved. And I would spend the rest of my life fighting to protect Robert from it. Even if it killed me. Outside, the sun was setting over the city. For once, I didn't see an empire. I didn't see power or wealth. I saw a fragile chance at redemption, held together by the bond of one surviving son. And I swore I wouldn't waste it. But deep in the corners of my soul, where the shadows never lifted, Ethan's laughter lingered. The weeks following Ethan's sentencing were quiet in a way that felt unnatural, like a storm that had passed but left the air thick with electricity. Robert came home from the hospital in early spring. His body still bore scars, and his gait carried the stiffness of someone who had been broken and pieced back together. Yet there was a steadiness to him now that humbled me. Every step he took through the house was a reminder of his survival, his resilience. We tried to live. We tried to breathe. We tried to find normalcy in the wreckage. I cooked him breakfast, poorly, but I tried. He teased me about burning the eggs, and for the first time in years, laughter filled the kitchen. It was brittle, tentative, but it was real. For fleeting moments, I believed we could start again. But shadows lingered. One morning, Robert handed me a letter. It had no return address, only his name scrawled across the front. My stomach tightened before I even opened it. Inside was a single sentence, written in Ethan's sharp, unmistakable hand. Blood binds us more tightly than bars ever will. My throat closed. I folded the letter quickly, but Robert's eyes told me he had already read it. He's still in prison, Robert said calmly. He can't touch us. But we both knew better. Ethan didn't need to be free to reach us. His words alone were enough to poison peace. As the weeks rolled into months, small cracks appeared. Anonymous calls in the middle of the night. Silent, but heavy with intent. Packages left at the doorstep, harmless objects, but each carrying a twisted memory of Ethan's childhood. A broken toy car. A burned-out lighter. Things only he would remember. Robert grew restless. He tried to hide it, but I saw the way his hands trembled when he answered the phone, the way his eyes darted to the shadows at night. One evening, I found him sitting alone in the darkened living room, staring at nothing. He's never going to let me go, is he? Robert's voice was hoarse. I sat beside him. He wants you to believe that. He wants to live inside your head, rent-free. That's the only power he has left. Robert turned to me, his eyes filled with both fear and defiance. And what if he's right? What if I'll always be his victim? Something inside me broke. I reached for his shoulder, gripping it tightly. "No," I said, voice trembling. "You're not his victim. You're my son. And I swear on what's left of my life, I'll protect you from him. Even if I have to stand between you forever." But deep down, I feared the truth. Ethan's war wasn't just against Robert. It was against me. And it wasn't over. That summer, I began dismantling the empire I had built. Selling properties. Cutting ties with partners who had been silent during my family's collapse. Every signature, every closed deal, felt like another piece of my old self burning away. Some called me a fool. Others whispered that grief had broken me. But I didn't care. For the first time in my life, I wasn't building for power. I was tearing down for peace. Robert, meanwhile, tried to reclaim his own life. He enrolled in a community course on architecture, something he had always loved but never pursued because of the family business. I saw sparks of joy in him I hadn't seen since he was a child. Yet even in those moments, Ethan's shadow slithered in. One night, Robert didn't come home. Panic clawed at me until I finally received his call. "I'm fine," he whispered. But I saw him. My blood turned to ice. "Saw who?" "Ethan." His voice cracked. "I swear I saw him. Outside the campus, watching me. He just stood there. Smiling." I gripped the phone tighter. "That's impossible. He's locked away." "Then explain it, Father," Robert snapped, his fear twisting into anger. "Explain how he knew where I'd be. Explain how he looked at me like he was free." I had no explanation. And in that silence, Robert's faith in my promises began to fracture. The next day, I called the prison. They assured me Ethan hadn't left. No visitors. No movement. No escape. But Robert's terror wasn't imaginary. Later that week, another letter arrived. This time addressed to me. "You can lock me in a cage, Father. But you can't lock me out of your minds. I will always be between you. Always." I burned the letter in the fireplace. But even as the flames consumed it, I felt his presence tightening around us like a noose. Robert started avoiding me. Not out of hatred, but out of exhaustion. "Every time I see you," he admitted, "I see him too. I don't know how to separate you." His words gutted me. I wanted to tell him I understood, because when I looked in the mirror, I saw Ethan's eyes staring back at me. The truth I had been running from was undeniable. Ethan was right. Blood bound us. And the question that haunted me every night was this: could Robert ever truly escape Ethan's legacy, when Ethan lived inside both of us? That autumn, I stood on the balcony of my nearly empty penthouse, watching the city pulse below. The empire was gone. The wealth, the power, the allies, all ashes. But as the wind howled around me, I realized something chilling. The real empire wasn't the one I built in steel and glass. It was the one Ethan built inside our souls. And tearing it down would take more than money, more than walls, more than bars. It would take something I wasn't sure I had left, the courage to face him not as an enemy, but as my son. Because until I did, Robert would never be free. And neither would I. The city moved on, but we did not. Every day carried the illusion of normalcy, Robert attending his architecture classes, me signing the last papers that would dissolve the remnants of my fortune. Yet beneath the surface, a current pulled at us, dragging us back toward Ethan. It began with whispers. Robert told me he heard his name in crowded hallways. Not from friends, not from strangers, but from voices that seemed too familiar. Once, he swore he heard Ethan's laugh echo through the library stacks, though when he turned, no one was there. He started sleeping less. Eating less. His once bright eyes dulled with the weight of paranoia. I recognized it because I felt it too. One evening, I walked into Robert's room and found him sitting on the edge of his bed, clutching a notebook. His hands shook as though the pages themselves carried poison. "What is it?" I asked gently. He hesitated, then passed me the notebook. Scrawled across every page, in different sizes and angles, was Ethan's handwriting. Words that clawed at the mind. "You are me. You cannot erase me. Blood never lies." I stared at the ink until the letters blurred. "Where did you get this?" Robert's lips trembled. "It was in my backpack. I don't know how. I didn't write it. I swear I didn't." My chest tightened. The prison swore Ethan hadn't left. But if he hadn't, then who was delivering these horrors to my son? Or worse, was Ethan somehow guiding Robert from within, twisting him into a reflection? That night, Robert broke. "I can't escape him," he whispered, rocking back and forth. "Everywhere I go, he's there. In shadows. In words. In me. Maybe he's right. Maybe I am him." I knelt before him, gripping his face in my hands. "No, Robert. You are not him. You are more than him. You are everything he couldn't be." But Robert's eyes glistened with doubt. "What if I don't want to find out the hard way?" The despair in his voice chilled me. Ethan hadn't just haunted him. He had infected him. Days later, another letter arrived. Unlike the others, this one was typed, clean, almost clinical. "He is unraveling, Father. Do you see it? Do you see how little it takes for me to destroy him? One whisper. One thought. And he is mine. You call yourself his protector, yet every step he takes leads back to me. That is my empire. That is my victory." My hands shook so violently I nearly tore the page in half. This wasn't just a taunt. It was a declaration of ownership. Ethan didn't want to kill Robert. He wanted to absorb him. To prove that Robert was nothing more than a shadow of him. And I was powerless to stop it. In desperation, I arranged a visit with Ethan. The guards warned me, he enjoys these meetings too much. He feeds on them. But I had no choice. When I entered the prison visitation room, Ethan was already seated, chains glinting under the fluorescent lights. He smiled when he saw me, slow and venomous, as if he had been waiting all his life for this moment. "Father," he drawled, his voice smooth, mocking. "What took you so long?" I sat down, gripping the edge of the table. "Leave Robert alone." Ethan tilted his head, amusement flickering in his eyes. "Leave him alone? I've done nothing. He comes to me. In thoughts. In fears. In dreams. He is the one who carries me." I slammed my hand against the table, the sound echoing through the room. "You've poisoned him enough. He deserves freedom." Ethan leaned forward, chains rattling. "Freedom? There is no freedom from blood, Father. You of all people should know that. You made me. You raised me. Everything I am, came from you. And Robert? He is simply, continuing the legacy." I stared into his eyes, and for a brief, horrifying moment, I saw Robert's face in his. The same eyes. The same defiance. I stumbled back, nearly choking on the air. Ethan's laughter followed me all the way out of the prison. When I returned home, Robert was gone. His phone lay abandoned on the kitchen counter. Panic surged through me as hours stretched into the night. Finally, near dawn, the door opened. Robert staggered in, eyes bloodshot, clothes damp with sweat. "Where were you?" I demanded. He looked at me with hollow eyes. "I went to the prison." My heart froze. "Why?" I had to see him, Robert whispered. I had to know if he was real, or if he was inside me. Tears blurred my vision. And what did you find? Robert's voice cracked, raw with anguish. I don't know anymore. Because when I looked at him, it felt like looking into a mirror. The silence that followed was suffocating. Ethan hadn't needed to escape his cage. He had succeeded from within, planting himself so deeply inside Robert that my son questioned his very identity. And as I held Robert that night, feeling his body shake against mine, I realized the truth I had feared all along. Ethan's war was never about breaking free. It was about making sure we never did. The days that followed blurred into a fevered haze. Robert rarely slept. When he did, it was shallow, restless, broken by gasps and whispers. Sometimes I heard him talking in his sleep, muttering fragments of conversations that chilled me. I am you. You can't run. Finish what I started. I would sit outside his door, listening, my chest tightening with every syllable. He was slipping, and I couldn't tell if I was watching him lose himself, or if Ethan was pulling him in like a tide. One night, I entered his room without knocking. The blinds were drawn tight, the air thick with the stench of sweat and paper. Robert was at his desk, his hand moving furiously across a sheet of paper. "Robert," I said softly. He didn't answer. I stepped closer and froze. He was sketching a face. Sharp features, cold eyes, a smile that wasn't a smile at all. Ethan's face. Page after page, the same face. Dozens of them, some so detailed they looked alive. "Why are you drawing him?" My voice cracked. Robert finally turned toward me. His pupils were wide, his expression blank. "Because I need to remember who he is. Because if I don't, I'll forget who I am." I reached for the paper, but he snatched it back with surprising speed. "Don't touch it. You don't understand, Dad. If I stop, if I let my guard down, he wins." His voice was raw, torn between desperation and conviction. And in that moment, I realized, Robert wasn't only haunted. He was fighting, tooth and nail, against Ethan's invasion of his mind. But for how long? The breaking point came 3 nights later. I woke to the sound of footsteps in the hallway. Not the cautious steps of someone sneaking, but the steady, deliberate tread of someone with purpose. I found Robert standing in the kitchen. The lights were off, the moonlight spilling across the counters. In his hand, he held a knife. My heart stopped. "Robert," I whispered, my voice trembling, "put it down." He didn't move. His eyes were locked on the blade, his breath shallow. "I don't know who I am anymore," he said flatly. "If he's in me, then maybe the only way to end this is to end me." I lunged forward, grabbing his wrist. The knife clattered to the floor, skidding across the tiles. "No. Don't you dare say that. You are not him, Robert. Do you hear me? You are not him." His body shook violently as he collapsed into my arms. "Then help me, Dad," he begged, tears streaking his face. "Please, before it's too late." The next day, I made the hardest call of my life. I brought Robert to a clinic, one that specialized in psychological trauma. The doctors promised therapy, medication, monitoring. They spoke with calm, clinical confidence, but I saw the doubt flicker in their eyes when I told them who Ethan was. They didn't understand. They couldn't. As Robert was led away for evaluation, he glanced back at me, his eyes wide with fear. "Don't leave me here." "I'll never leave you," I swore. But as the doors closed between us, guilt crushed me. Because in that moment, I had left him. That night, I received another letter. This one wasn't taunting. It was cruel in a different way. "How noble of you, Father, to hand him over to strangers. Do you think white walls and pills will save him? No. They will only remind him of me. Every test. Every question. Every locked door. All of it will echo my voice. And when they fail, and they will, he will come back to me. Not because I force him. But because he chooses me. Blood always does. I crumpled the letter in my fist, rage and despair choking me. Ethan's confidence was unshakable because he knew something I couldn't admit. No matter how many doors I locked, how many doctors I hired, Robert's war wasn't with the world. It was within himself. Weeks passed. I visited Robert daily. Some days, he was calm, lucid, even hopeful. Other days, I found him scribbling Ethan's name across the walls of his room, his voice hoarse from whispering arguments with an unseen figure. One afternoon, he looked at me with piercing clarity. "Dad, what if he's right? What if I am him?" I shook my head furiously. "You're not. You're my son. You're Robert. You are good." But he leaned closer, his voice low. "What if goodness is just borrowed time? What if all I'm doing is delaying the moment I become him?" His words pierced me deeper than any of Ethan's letters. Because in them, I heard the seed of surrender. And I knew, if I didn't act, Ethan would win. That night, I sat alone at the kitchen table, the house heavy with silence. A single thought clawed at me, one I had pushed away for months. What if the only way to save Robert was to destroy Ethan once and for all? The idea terrified me, because it wasn't just about ending Ethan's life. It was about ending his legacy. About severing the bloodline he so proudly claimed. Could I do it? Could I kill my own son to save the other? As the clock ticked past midnight, I realized the truth. I would do anything. Anything. But Ethan had already anticipated this. The next day, another letter arrived. "I know what you're thinking, Father. You wonder if killing me will free him. But it won't. Because the moment you spill my blood, it becomes his. And then you will see the truth I have always promised you, Robert is me. And you? You are nothing but the man who delivered us both." I stared at the page, my hands trembling, my vision swimming with tears. Ethan had stripped me bare. He knew my thoughts before I could even speak them. He had caged me in the same way he caged Robert. And in that moment, I understood the horror of it all. The war was never just for Robert's soul. It was for mine. I sat in the parking lot of the clinic long after visiting hours ended, staring at the faint glow of its windows. Somewhere inside, Robert was lying awake, fighting shadows only he could see. And I was out here, gripping the steering wheel so hard my knuckles burned, imagining what it would feel like to end Ethan's life with my own hands. The thought had once been unthinkable. But now? Now it was a kind of salvation. 2 weeks earlier, a counselor at the clinic had told me, "We can treat symptoms. We can stabilize him. But trauma that deep? It lives in the blood. Blood. Always blood." Ethan's letters haunted me more than Robert's episodes. Each one arrived with surgical precision, cutting deeper than the last. He wasn't just taunting, he was orchestrating. He wanted me to consider killing him. He wanted me to imagine the weight of his death. But why? Because he knew. He knew the moment I killed him, Robert would never forgive me. And if Robert broke, Ethan would own him forever. It was a trap. And yet, it was also the only door I saw left open. I tried to talk to Robert about hope. About fighting. About choosing light over darkness. But even in his best moments, the war inside him was visible. "Dad," he said one afternoon, his voice calm but chillingly steady, "do you ever think maybe the world doesn't need both of us?" My chest constricted. "What are you saying?" He tilted his head, a shadow of a smile tugging at his lips, not his smile. "Ethan's. Maybe I was always meant to be his mirror. Maybe all I'm doing is delaying the moment when I finally stop pretending to be me. I grabbed his hands, squeezing them tight. No. You are not him. Don't you ever give up like that. His eyes softened for a second. But then, like a storm crossing his face, they hardened again. Then prove it. End him. Or admit you're too afraid to save me. The words cut deeper than any letter. My own son was asking me to kill my other son. That night, I poured myself whiskey until the glass trembled in my hand. Memories bled through the alcohol, the day Robert was born, his fragile cries filling the sterile hospital room. Ethan's proud smirk the first time he held his brother. The photograph of the three of us fishing by the lake, Robert no more than 7, Ethan showing him how to bait a hook. For years I thought I could be father to both. Now it felt like I had to choose which son deserved to live. I hated myself for even thinking it. But hatred didn't change the truth. The decision began to take shape slowly, like rot in wood. If Ethan lived, Robert would eventually break. The clinic was only a dam against an endless flood. Ethan would claw his way back into Robert's soul piece by piece until there was nothing left. But if Ethan died, maybe, just maybe, Robert could heal. I told myself it wasn't murder. It was mercy. I told myself 100 things. And none of them made it easier. A week later, I received another letter. It wasn't addressed to me. It was addressed to Robert. Brother, you're doing well. I see you in my dreams now. You are closer to me than ever. Father thinks he can save you by destroying me. But let me tell you the truth, if I die, I live in you. If I bleed, the blood will run into your veins. And you will know me fully. Tell him not to fear it. Tell him to do it. Because when he does, you will finally see who you really are. I folded the letter, my hands trembling. I couldn't let Robert read it. I burned it in the sink, watching the words curl into ash. But the damage was already done. The seed was planted in both of us. The next time I visited the clinic, Robert was calmer. Too calm. He sat upright in the white plastic chair, his hands folded neatly, his eyes unervingly steady. Did you get his letter? He asked. I froze. What letter? He smiled faintly. Don't lie, Dad. I felt it. I always feel it. He's right, you know. Kill him. Set me free. His voice was even. Too even. Like someone rehearsing lines. I reached across the table, searching his face. Robert, listen to me. If I do that, it might destroy you. He leaned closer, lowering his voice. Or it might finish me. The weight of his words sat like lead in my stomach. That night, I drove past the place Ethan was rumored to stay. An old farmhouse on the outskirts, windows boarded, but smoke curling faintly from the chimney. I parked half a mile away and just sat there, the gun heavy in the glove box beside me. I didn't open it. I didn't step out of the car. But for 2 hours, I stared at that house, imagining the door swinging open, imagining Ethan's face when he realized it was me. I imagined pulling the trigger. And I imagined Robert screaming. By the time I drove away, my heart was thundering so violently I thought it might tear itself apart. But the thought didn't leave me. It grew. The next day, the clinic called. Robert had attacked a nurse. He hadn't hurt her badly, but he'd grabbed her wrist and whispered in her ear, "You look just like him when you flinch." When I arrived, Robert was strapped to the bed, his eyes cold, his lips twitching with words I couldn't hear. The doctor pulled me aside. "Mr. Whitmore, your son's condition is deteriorating. I don't say this lightly, but if we can't stabilize him, he may need to be transferred to a more secure facility. A prison in all but name." I felt the floor drop out from under me. My son was slipping through my hands. And Ethan was winning. That night, I unlocked the glove box. I took the gun in my hand. I sat in the driveway for hours, staring at it under the pale porch light, the weight of it pressing down on me. If killing Ethan meant saving Robert, could I really say no? I didn't notice the envelope until I went inside. It was lying on the kitchen counter, placed there as though by invisible hands. I tore it open, my fingers shaking. Father, the clock ticks. The boy is nearly mine. You can try the clinics, the drugs, the locks. None of it matters. There is only one ending. You and me. One bullet. One truth. But remember this, the moment you raise that gun to me, you'll already know. Because the look in Robert's eyes will be the same as mine. And then you'll see, you never had two sons. You had one. Split in two. My knees buckled. I slid down against the counter, clutching the letter to my chest. I had thought the war was between me and Ethan. Between Ethan and Robert. But no, Ethan had revealed the truth in one final, merciless twist. The war was between me and myself. The night I finally saw Ethan again, it wasn't planned. I told myself I would only drive past the farmhouse, maybe sit in the shadows and study the man who had destroyed us. But deep down, I knew that was a lie. I had the gun in the glove box. I had the letter still burning in my pocket. And I had Robert's voice in my head, end him. Set me free. The gravel road cracked beneath the tires as I pulled to a stop. The farmhouse loomed like a corpse, windows patched with wood, paint flaking, the front door hanging crooked on rusted hinges. A single light glowed from inside. I cut the engine. The silence was suffocating. For minutes, I just sat there, pulse hammering in my ears, whispering to myself, don't. Turn back. Leave. But then I thought of Robert strapped to that clinic bed, whispering with Ethan's voice. And I opened the glove box. The gun felt alien in my hand, heavy and cold. My fingers trembled as I slid it under my jacket and stepped out into the night. The air was damp, carrying the faint smell of smoke and something else, something metallic, like old blood. The porch creaked beneath my boots. Each step forward felt like I was crossing some invisible line, moving deeper into a place no father should ever go. I raised my hand and knocked once. The door opened before my knuckles even fell. And there he was. Ethan. He looked older, but not weaker. His frame was leaner, sharper, as though time had carved him into something harder than bone. His hair was longer, falling messily across his face, but his eyes, God, his eyes, were the same. Piercing. Cold. Alive with something that had always felt inhuman. Father, he said softly, as though we had simply met for coffee after years apart. I wondered when you'd find the courage. My throat closed. I wanted to raise the gun, to end it right there, but my hand froze at my side. Where is Robert? I demanded. Ethan's lips curled into a smile. With me. Always with me. I'm not playing games, Ethan. My voice cracked. Tell me where he is. He tilted his head, studying me. You still don't understand, do you? He's never left me. He's mine because he was always mine. Two halves of the same whole. You raised us both, but only one of us survived intact. Rage burned in me, and I pulled the gun free, leveling it at his chest. Enough. This ends tonight. But Ethan didn't flinch. He didn't beg. He stepped closer, pressing his chest against the barrel, his eyes locked to mine. Do it, then. Kill me. Save him. Isn't that the story you've been telling yourself? His breath brushed my face, warm, steady, taunting. Go on, Father. But when the bullet passes through me, tell me, whose face will you see when I fall? The gun shook in my hands. I tried to picture Ethan's body crumpling, tried to believe it would bring Robert back. But instead, I saw Robert's face, his eyes cold, his voice whispering Ethan's words. What if Ethan was right? What if killing him only fed the darkness? I faltered. My finger froze on the trigger. Ethan leaned closer, whispering, "There it is. The truth. You're not afraid of me. You're afraid of him. Because he's already me." The room spun. My knees nearly buckled. "No," I whispered. "No, that's not true." "Then listen," Ethan hissed. And in the silence, I heard it. A voice behind him. "Dad." Robert stood in the shadows of the hallway, his hospital gown hanging loose, his eyes vacant. He looked thinner, weaker, his skin pale as ash. But it was him. My heart collapsed in my chest. "Robert, what are you doing here?" He didn't answer. He only stepped forward, his bare feet silent on the wooden floor. And then he smiled. It wasn't his smile. It was Ethan's. I staggered back, lowering the gun, my world splitting apart. "No, no, this isn't real. Robert, fight it. Please." Robert tilted his head, mirroring Ethan perfectly. "He doesn't want to fight anymore, Father. He's tired. Aren't you, Robert?" And then, to my horror, Robert spoke with his own voice, but the words weren't his. "Yes. I'm tired." The walls seemed to close in. My mind screamed to run, but my feet wouldn't move. I raised the gun again, pointing it between them, my hands trembling uncontrollably. "Get out of him, Ethan," I roared. But Ethan only laughed, the sound low and guttural. "You still don't get it. I'm not in him. I am him. Every time you look at him, you're looking at me. Every time you beg him to be strong, you're begging me. We are not two. We are one. And you're the fool who refuses to see it." Robert's eyes locked to mine, pleading silently, even as the smile lingered on his lips. "Dad," he whispered. "Help me." The gun wavered. I couldn't tell which one I was pointing at anymore. "Ethan." "Robert." "Robert." "Ethan." The world blurred, my vision swimming with their faces overlapping. I realized then what Ethan had always wanted. Not just to break Robert. Not just to win. He wanted me to choose. Choose who lived. Choose who died. Choose which son was real. "Stop," I begged, tears stinging my eyes. "Stop this. You're both my sons." Ethan's expression hardened. "No. One of us is your son. The other is the shadow you raised without knowing. And tonight you'll decide which one survives." He stepped back, placing his hand on Robert's shoulder, like a puppeteer steadying his doll. "Go on, Father. Pull the trigger. End one of us. End both of us. Or do nothing, and watch us both rot." I stood there, choking on my own breath, the gun trembling, the weight of every memory pressing down on me. Robert's first steps. Ethan's laughter by the fire. The nights I held them both after nightmares, promising I'd keep them safe. And now, this. A father with a gun, forced to choose which son to kill. Or to kill himself trying. My finger tightened on the trigger. I had seconds. Seconds to decide. Seconds to end one life, or both. Seconds before the last thread of sanity snapped. And then. The gun went off. The sound split the night like a scream, echoing through the empty fields outside. One of them fell. The other stood. And my life ended in that instant, because whichever way the bullet landed, I had killed my son. The gunshot still rang in my skull when silence fell like a coffin lid. Smoke curled from the barrel. My ears throbbed with a high-pitched ringing. For a moment, I couldn't even breathe. And then I saw him. Robert. He was on the floor, his body twisted, a dark bloom spreading across his chest. His lips trembled as he tried to form words, his eyes wide with shock, with pain, yet not entirely his own. "No," I whispered, the gun falling from my hands. "No, God, no." I dropped to my knees beside him, cradling his head, rocking him as if he were still my boy, small and fragile. But as I searched his face, I saw it, the flicker. That smile. That terrible, knowing smile. "You chose wrong," Ethan's voice rasped through Robert's lips. I recoiled, my stomach heaving, bile burning my throat. "No. I didn't." "Robert, fight him. Stay with me. Please." Robert's fingers clutched at my shirt weakly, his eyes brimming with tears, but the words that spilled from his mouth weren't his. "You never understood," Ethan whispered, blood bubbling at his lips. "I wasn't outside of him. I was inside all along. Every shadow, every whisper, you fed me when you ignored him, when you doubted him, when you left him to face me alone. You raised me as much as him, Father. And now." His body convulsed violently in my arms. "We die together." "No." I screamed, pressing my hands against the wound, desperate, frantic, shaking. Blood soaked my palms, warm and slick, the copper scent filling my nose. "Robert, please, look at me. Stay. Stay, son." For a heartbeat, his eyes softened. The cruel smirk faded, replaced by something achingly familiar. "Dad," he whispered, his real voice at last. "I'm sorry." Tears blurred my vision. "Don't you dare apologize. None of this is your fault. I should've, God, I should've protected you." His hand lifted weakly, trembling, to touch my cheek. "I was never enough," he breathed, each word a knife. "Not for him. Not for you." And then his eyes rolled back. His body went limp. The silence that followed was unbearable. I pressed my ear to his chest, praying for a heartbeat. Nothing. Just the fading warmth of a son I had loved, and lost, and failed in every possible way. The gunshot echoed again in my memory, over and over, like a verdict. I had killed Robert. And Ethan had won. I don't know how long I sat there, rocking his lifeless body. Minutes. Hours. Maybe the whole night. My mind replayed every moment, his laugh when he was small, his cries in the dark, the way he used to grip my hand so tightly as if I was the only safe thing in the world. And then, his final words. "Not enough." The phrase crawled into my skull like a parasite. Had I ever made him feel like he was enough? Or had my blind faith in his strength, my desperate denial of his weakness, carved the space Ethan had filled? The thought hollowed me. A sound broke the stillness. Laughter. Low, raspy, crawling out from Robert's mouth though his chest no longer rose with breath. I froze. My body went cold. The corpse shifted, twitching violently, and then the voice came again. "You think this ends with his blood?" I stumbled back, nearly slipping on the slick floor. Robert's body lay still again, but his lips curved into a faint, grotesque smile. Ethan's smile. Terror surged through me. My hands shook uncontrollably as I backed away. "No," I whispered. "You're dead. Both of you are dead." The silence answered me, thick and suffocating. But in the back of my mind, a whisper crawled forward. Not Robert's voice. Not even Ethan's. My own. "You killed him. You chose wrong. And now he'll never leave you." I staggered to my feet, chest heaving, vision blurred with tears. The farmhouse walls seemed to breathe, the shadows stretching and twisting. I stumbled toward the door, desperate to escape. But as my hand touched the knob, I froze. In the glass pane beside the door, I saw my reflection. Only, it wasn't mine. The face that stared back was Ethan's. Grinning. I collapsed against the door, screaming, pounding my fists against the wood. My mind fractured in that instant, reality tearing down the middle. Had I killed Robert? Had I killed Ethan? Had I only killed the last hope of saving either? I didn't know anymore. All I knew was this. The shadow wasn't in Robert now. It was in me. I stumbled out into the night, clutching my chest as if I could hold the darkness inside from spilling out. The cold air tore into my lungs, but it didn't clear my head. Robert's voice echoed in my ears, overlapping with Ethan's, twisting together into something inseparable. Father. 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 Each repetition was a knife. I fell to my knees in the dirt, my body racked with sobs. I had gone to save my son. And instead, I had become the monster I had feared. Behind me, the farmhouse light flickered once. And went out. The night swallowed everything whole. The night didn't feel real anymore. The farmhouse was gone behind me, its outline swallowed by the trees, but I couldn't shake the feeling it was still watching. Every branch creaked like footsteps. Every rustle of wind carried a whisper that sounded like his name. Robert. No, Ethan. No, both. My chest tightened until I couldn't breathe. My son was dead. My mistake had killed him. But the shadow hadn't died with him, it had slithered into me, coiled around my ribs like a serpent, waiting. I could feel it. I could hear it. You didn't choose wrong, the voice whispered. It wasn't coming from outside, it curled in my skull, brushing the inside of my ears like a lover's breath. You just chose late. I clutched my head, digging my nails into my scalp until warm blood beaded beneath them. Shut up. Shut up. The woods answered with silence, but the voice hummed beneath it, steady, patient. Don't you see? You never killed me. You invited me. You opened the door the second you aimed that gun. And now. A chuckle rattled through my bones. We're family. I stumbled forward, branches clawing at my clothes. My legs moved without aim, without direction. I only knew I had to keep moving or the voice would consume me whole. The night air grew colder with every step. Frost clung to the grass though it wasn't the season for it. My breath came out in pale clouds, though my skin burned like fire. You've carried me all your life, Ethan's voice went on. In every disappointment, every failure, every moment Robert looked at you and wondered if you truly saw him. That little seed of doubt, that was me. I was never just his shadow. I was yours too. No, I whispered, staggering against a tree, my body shaking. You're lying. But hadn't I always feared it? Hadn't there been nights, even when Robert was small, when I heard things in the walls, in the silence, in my own mind? Maybe I hadn't ignored Robert's cries out of blindness. Maybe I had ignored them because they were mine too. A memory flashed, Christmas Eve, years ago. Robert was 7. I had woken in the middle of the night to find him standing in the hallway, pale and trembling. There's someone in my room, he whispered. I had brushed it off. Told him it was just shadows, just his imagination. Sent him back to bed. But after he left, I had lingered in the hall. And I swore, for the briefest second, I saw movement in my own doorway. A shape. A smile. And then nothing. I had buried the memory. Until now. The voice laughed again, louder this time. Do you remember? You saw me too. You let me in first. Robert only inherited what you gave him. I slammed my fists against the tree bark until they split open, blood dripping down my wrists. Stop it. Get out of me. But the laughter didn't stop. It spread. It echoed, Not just in my head but in the forest around me, as if the trees themselves were in on the mockery. When I stumbled into a clearing, I collapsed, clawing at the dirt. My body convulsed, every muscle rebelling, as though something inside was trying to crawl out. Images flashed behind my eyes, Robert gasping for air, Robert whispering I was never enough, Robert's blood soaking my hands. But then, other images. My own face. But smiling. Grinning with Ethan's cruelty. My own mouth moving, but his voice spilling out. "You'll see soon, Father," it whispered. "You can't kill what you are. You can't bury me because I am you." I screamed until my throat tore raw, but the sound only seemed to feed him. The wind rose, howling through the clearing, whipping leaves and dirt into the air. My vision blurred, the world spinning around me. And then I heard another voice. Softer. Fainter. "Dad." I froze. My heart slammed against my ribs. "Robert?" The clearing fell silent again. And then, Dad. It was him. My boy. His real voice. Gentle. Fragile. Calling from somewhere I couldn't see. "Help me." I stumbled to my feet, whipping around in every direction. "Robert? Where are you?" "Please, please, son, I'm here." But every time I turned, the voice shifted, slipping behind me, circling me like prey. "Help me. Save me. Don't leave me." My chest cracked open with grief. I chased the sound blindly, stumbling deeper into the woods, branches tearing at my skin, roots tripping my steps. And all the while, Ethan's laughter ran beneath it, like a second track of sound. "You'll never reach him. Because he's in here now." The voice shifted lower, mocking, cruel. "Right where I wanted him. Right where I wanted you." I collapsed again, curling into myself on the forest floor, hands over my ears, sobbing like a child. But no matter how tight I pressed, I couldn't block them out. Robert. Ethan. My own voice. All three twining together until I couldn't tell who was speaking anymore. Dad. Father. Victor. One word. Three voices. One meaning. Mine. For the first time, I realized the truth. I hadn't killed Robert. I hadn't spared Ethan. I had merged them. And now, they were inside me, both of them, fighting for space in the hollow shell I had become. When dawn broke, pale light spilling into the woods, I was still lying there, shaking, muttering, my fingernails caked with dirt and blood. I didn't know how much of the night had been real. But I knew one thing. I wasn't alone anymore. I never would be again. When I opened my eyes, the world was wrong. I was lying on my living room floor, cheek pressed against the cold wood. Morning light slanted through the blinds in harsh, fractured lines. My head throbbed, as if something had chewed through my skull and spat me back out. I didn't remember walking here. The last thing I remembered was the woods, the voices, Robert calling, Ethan laughing, the dirt clawed beneath my nails. But now, I was home. And I didn't know how I'd gotten here. At first, I thought maybe I'd blacked out, wandered back without knowing it. But then I saw the door. It was wide open. Not ajar, open. As if someone had walked in, or out. My stomach dropped. I always locked the door. Always. Robert? I whispered into the silence. The house didn't answer. But I swore, for a flicker of a second, I heard breathing. Not mine. Not steady. Wet. Slow. Coming from the corner where the light didn't reach. I froze, staring into the dark. But when I blinked, it was gone. I stumbled to my feet, body heavy, skin clammy. I needed water, something, anything to pull me back into myself. But when I reached the kitchen, I stopped dead. There was a note on the table. Written in thick, black ink. 3 words. I am here. I grabbed it with shaking hands, scanning the letters over and over. The handwriting wasn't mine. It couldn't be. But my mind betrayed me, whispering what I already knew. It looked like mine. Not exactly. But close enough that if I'd been half asleep, or not myself. No, I said out loud, ripping the note in half, then in quarters, until the pieces rained across the floor. No. You're not here. You're not. But when I turned to the fridge, my reflection in the steel door was smiling. My lips weren't. My face wasn't. But the reflection was. I staggered back, heart racing, and nearly tripped over the trash can. My knees buckled, and I hit the tile, gasping. Then, faintly, from somewhere upstairs. Footsteps. Every hair on my body rose. Slow, deliberate creaks on the floorboards above me. Back and forth. Like someone pacing in Robert's old room. I grabbed the nearest thing I could find, a kitchen knife. My hand trembled so violently I almost dropped it, but I clutched it like a lifeline. Step. 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 I forced myself up the stairs, each groan of the wood under my feet sinking with my pulse. When I reached Robert's door, it was half open. The sound stopped. I pushed it open with the knife tip. The room was empty. Dust clung to the corners. The bed was bare. The toys and posters we'd boxed years ago were gone. But the window was open. Curtains fluttered in the morning air. And on the wall, carved deep into the plaster with something sharp, were words that made my blood freeze. Welcome back, Father. I dropped the knife. It clattered against the floor, but I barely heard it over the ringing in my ears. My knees went weak, and I sank to the floor, staring at the message. The letters weren't just carved. They were carved in my handwriting. I knew it. The same tilt of the E's. The same slant of the R's. But I hadn't done this. I couldn't have. Unless Ethan had. Through me. The whisper returned, curling inside my skull, smooth and amused. See? We're already working together. You don't even notice when I take the wheel. I slammed my fists into my temples. Get out. Get out of me. But the voice only laughed. You can't throw out blood. You can't tear out bone. I live where you live. I breathe when you breathe. The reflection in the window shimmered. And for an instant, I didn't see myself at all. I saw Ethan. Standing exactly where I sat. Smiling. I ran. Down the stairs, out the front door, barefoot on the cold grass. I didn't care. I needed distance, air, something to break this nightmare before it swallowed me whole. But when I reached the edge of the yard, I stopped dead. The mailbox was open. Inside was another note. Written in the same ink, the same almost but not quite my handwriting. This one said, "Tonight, we begin." I crumpled it in my hand, chest heaving, the edges cutting into my skin. What do you want? I screamed into the empty street. What the hell do you want from me? Silence. Then, faintly, carried on the wind. Robert's voice. Dad, help me. I dropped to my knees, sobs tearing through me, the note still clenched in my fist. I didn't know what was real anymore. I didn't know if Robert's voice was truly him or just Ethan twisting the knife. But I knew one thing. Tonight, something was coming. And I wasn't sure if I would survive it. Or if I even deserved to. That night, I didn't sleep. I sat in the living room with the lights on, the knife clutched in my hand, every muscle locked tight. But at 3 a.m. the lights flickered. The clock stopped. And a child's laugh echoed through the house. The laugh cut through me like a blade. High-pitched, shrill, unmistakably a child's. It echoed through the walls, bouncing between the corners, until I couldn't tell if it was upstairs, behind me, or inside my own head. I gripped the knife tighter, knuckles white, chest heaving. "Robert?" My voice cracked. No answer. Only silence. Then the lights flickered again. And again. Until the room plunged into darkness. I scrambled for the switch, flicking it up and down. Nothing. The bulbs were dead, or the power was gone. Only the dim, shifting glow of the streetlight outside filtered through the blinds, casting bars of light and shadow across the living room. My shadow stretched long and thin against the wall. But it wasn't alone. Beside it, another shadow. A boy. Small, hunched. Head cocked at an unnatural angle. My throat tightened. Slowly, I turned. There was nothing there. Just the couch. The table. The empty room. But the shadow remained. Then the clock ticked. Just once. But I knew, it had been frozen since midnight. I looked at it. 3:01 a.m. The hands trembled. And then they began to move. Not forward. Backwards. The second hand ticked in reverse, then the minute, then the hour. Spinning, faster and faster, until the face blurred into nothing. "Stop it," I whispered, voice shaking. "Stop this." But the whisper inside me only chuckled. "You're just on time, Victor. Our time. Tonight, we begin." The air thickened. It was harder to breathe, like the oxygen had been sucked from the room. My skin prickled, damp with sweat. And then, my hand moved. Not me. Not me. The knife rose, trembling, as if pulled by invisible strings. "Stop," I begged, fighting it, every muscle screaming as I tried to force it down. But the blade hovered in front of my face, tip aimed at my eye. A hair closer, and it would pierce. I cried out, shoving with all my strength. And suddenly, it dropped. Clattering to the floor. But my hand didn't fall. It stayed raised, fingers twitching. And I realized. I wasn't the one moving it anymore. I stumbled back, tripping over the rug, gasping for air. My body trembled violently, like I was caught between two currents. And then my other hand twitched. And my mouth. The corners curled. But I wasn't smiling. Ethan was. I collapsed to my knees, clawing at my face, my arms, as if I could tear him out, but his laughter filled the room, bursting from my throat. Not my laugh. His. Sharp. Cold. Joyless. I slapped a hand over my mouth, but it didn't stop. My body shook with it, my chest convulsing, until I was choking on it. Tears streamed down my face. I wasn't me anymore. I was us. The floorboards creaked. I froze, head snapping toward the stairs. Slow, deliberate steps. Like before. But this time, they didn't stop at Robert's room. They came closer. Down the hall. Closer. Until something stood at the top of the stairs. A boy's silhouette. Small. Thin. Still. I couldn't see his face. Only the outline, lit faintly by the streetlight spilling in from the window. "Robert?" My voice was broken, barely more than a whisper. The figure tilted its head. And then it spoke. But not in Robert's voice. In Ethan's. "Father." I scrambled backward, feet kicking against the floor. The silhouette moved, step by step, descending the stairs. But it didn't walk like a child. Its movements were stiff, jerky, as if pulled by strings. Each step thudded, heavier than it should have been. By the time it reached the bottom, my back was against the wall. There was nowhere left to go. The boy stopped. And for the first time, I saw his face. It was Robert's. But wrong. His eyes were hollow. His skin pale, almost gray. His lips curled in a smile too wide, teeth too sharp. "Help me, Dad," he said in Robert's voice, soft and pleading. Then his grin widened. "But you can't, can you?" Ethan's voice layered over it, low and venomous. "Because you're mine now." I screamed. Loud, raw, desperate. And lunged for the knife. My fingers closed around the handle, and I slashed upward, blind with terror. But when the blade cut through the air, the figure vanished. Just gone. Only empty space where he had stood. My chest heaved. My arms shook. The knife slipped from my hand again, clattering to the ground. But then I looked down. And saw the truth. My arm. My hand. It was smeared with blood. Not mine. Someone else's. Fresh. Still warm. And on the floor, carved into the wood where the blood dripped. 2 words appeared, as if invisible fingers were etching them right before my eyes. Too late. I staggered back, bile rising in my throat. My vision blurred, the room spinning. "Stop. Please, stop." I begged. But the voice inside me was louder now, almost jubilant. "Oh, Victor. You still don't understand. This isn't the beginning of the end. This is the end of the beginning." And for the first time, I believed him. I woke at the desk. My head was slumped on my arm, cheek pressed against the cool surface. My throat ached, raw, like I'd been shouting for hours. The lamp was still on, buzzing faintly. And before me, pages. Stacks of them. All covered in writing. Not mine. My pen was still in my hand, the ink smudged across my fingers. But the words weren't in my handwriting. The letters were jagged, slanted, like a child's scrawl, but deliberate, purposeful. I blinked, my eyes burning as I forced myself to read. Line after line, filling page after page. "He's mine. Robert is mine. You promised." The words bled together, frantic, obsessive, carved so deep into the paper the pen had nearly torn through. I flipped page after page, heart hammering, hands shaking. And then I saw it. Not just words. Drawings. Dozens of them. Childlike sketches. Robert's face, over and over. But always wrong. His eyes blacked out. His mouth stretched into a grotesque grin. His body twisted, broken, buried underground. And one sketch. Me. Standing over him, knife in hand. Smiling. My stomach lurched. I shoved the papers away, nearly knocking the lamp over. No. No, no, no. I stumbled to my feet, dizzy, clutching my head. Had I written this? I couldn't have. I would remember. Wouldn't I? I looked at my hands again. Ink. And blood. Both fresh. The clock ticked. 3:01 a.m. again. No. Impossible. I'd been sitting here for hours. It should be dawn. But the hands hadn't moved since the night before. Still frozen. As if time itself had been trapped in this house. A faint sound reached my ears. Scratching. Not from outside. From the walls. I held my breath, heart pounding, straining to hear. The sound moved, traveling through the walls, circling the room. Like claws dragging along wood. Then. A whisper. Soft. childlike. Dad. My blood turned to ice. Dad, help me. Robert. I lunged for the door, flinging it open, sprinting into the hall. Robert. I shouted, voice hoarse, desperate. But the hall was empty. Only the sound of scratching. Now louder. Now above me. In the ceiling. I stumbled into his room, flinging the door open so hard it slammed against the wall. Empty. The bed untouched. The toys scattered as they always were. But the closet. The closet door stood open. And inside. Carved into the back wall. The same 2 words. Too late. Fresh. The wood splintered, the grooves raw. My chest seized. I collapsed to my knees, clutching my face. No, please, no. The whisper came again. This time not Robert's. Ethan's. Why do you cry, Father? This is what you wanted. No. I screamed, slamming my fist against the floor. You can't have him. A laugh. Inside me. And outside. All at once. You don't even know what I have already. Then pain. Sharp. Searing. In my hand. I looked down. The knife was there. I didn't remember picking it up. But it was there, gripped tight in my fist. And across the blade. Blood. Not mine. Dark. Thick. I dropped it instantly, stumbling back, wiping my palm against my shirt. No. I didn't. But the floor told me otherwise. Dark drops. A trail. Leading out of the room. My legs trembled as I followed. Down the hall. Down the stairs. The trail smeared across the wood, glistening in the faint light. I didn't want to follow. But I couldn't stop. Each step heavier than the last. Until I reached the kitchen. And saw the door. The back door. Wide open. Swinging gently in the night breeze. And the blood trail. Leading out. Into the yard. Into the dark. I froze. My mind screamed at me to stay inside, to lock the door, to pray this wasn't real. But my body moved on its own. Out the door. Into the cold night. The grass wet against my bare feet, the wind biting at my skin. The trail gleamed under the moonlight, leading across the yard. Toward the trees. Toward the place Ethan had been buried. I stopped at the edge. The earth was disturbed. Freshly dug. The mound of dirt where the grave had been. Split open. As if something had clawed its way out. And beside it. A small shoe. Robert's. My knees gave out. I collapsed, choking on my own breath, clawing at the dirt with trembling hands. Robert. I screamed, my voice tearing from my throat. Robert. But the earth was empty. No body. No child. Only the echo of Ethan's laughter. Inside me. Around me. Everywhere. And the words, whispering through the trees, carried on the wind. He's mine now. I fell forward, face pressed into the cold earth, sobbing until my chest ached, my throat raw. And for the first time, I knew. I wasn't fighting Ethan anymore. I was losing. And Robert was slipping further and further away. The sun rose, but it didn't feel like morning. I sat slumped on the couch, staring at the blood-streaked dirt still caked beneath my fingernails. My body ached as though I'd run miles, though I couldn't remember leaving the house again after collapsing in the yard. The clock on the wall read 9:12 a.m. I should have felt relief, daylight meant safety. But the light filtering through the blinds was pale, cold, unreal. Robert was gone. At least, I thought he was. The memory of the grave split open, the shoe in the dirt, the laughter in the trees, was it a nightmare? Or had it happened hours ago? I didn't know anymore. A knock rattled the door. I jolted upright, heart hammering. Another knock. Firmer this time. Victor? A woman's voice. Concerned. It's Helen. From next door. Helen. My neighbor. Retired, lived alone, always polite but distant. I hesitated, my pulse racing. She knocked again. Victor, I wanted to ask if Robert's all right. My stomach turned to stone. I pulled the door open just enough to see her face, lined, pale, eyes sharp with worry. What do you mean? I croaked, my throat dry. She hesitated, twisting her hands. I didn't want to say anything, but last night, around 3, I saw you in the yard. With Robert. Her words slammed into me like a hammer. With Robert? My voice cracked. She nodded quickly. Yes. He was barefoot. You were holding his hand. He looked half asleep, poor thing. I called out, but neither of you answered. You just walked into the woods. My chest seized. No, I whispered, shaking my head. That's not possible. He was in his bed. She gave me a long, searching look. Victor. I know what I saw. Are you sure he's all right? I shut the door before she could say more, pressing my back against it, lungs heaving. This couldn't be real. I didn't remember. I didn't remember leaving. Didn't remember taking Robert outside. Didn't remember the woods. But Helen had seen it. And the blood on my hands. The papers on the desk. The knife. I squeezed my temples, bile rising in my throat. What if it wasn't Ethan? What if it was me? I staggered down the hall to Robert's room, throwing open the door. The bed was made, untouched. The toy cars were still scattered across the rug. But the closet. The closet door hung open again. And inside. A drawing taped to the wall. My hands shook as I peeled it free. Robert's crayon work. His little scrawls, messy and uneven. But the picture. Me. Standing tall. Holding his hand. Both of us smiling. In front of the trees. Tears stung my eyes. I clutched the paper to my chest, sinking to the floor. It was true. We had gone outside. But why didn't I remember? What had I done? I couldn't trust myself anymore. The phone rang. The shrill sound cut through the silence, making me flinch so hard the paper tore in my hand. I stumbled to the kitchen, grabbing the receiver with trembling fingers. Victor? A voice. Male. Stern. It was Marcus, another neighbor. You need to control your boy, he snapped. I saw him in my yard last night. Staring into my window. My blood ran cold. What? Don't play dumb. He was standing there at 3 in the morning. Just, staring. I was about to call the cops when you came and took him away. My grip faltered. Marcus, I didn't. He hung up. The room spun. Another witness. Another missing memory. I slammed the phone down, clutching the counter for balance. My heart pounded so loud it drowned out thought. Pieces were clicking together in my mind, fragments of moments I'd buried. The scratching in the walls. The whispers in my voice. The knife in my hand. This wasn't Ethan stealing Robert away. This was Ethan using me. And worse. The more I fought, the stronger he became. A faint giggle echoed behind me. High-pitched. Innocent. Robert. I spun, eyes wide, scanning the kitchen. Empty. But on the counter. Another paper. Folded neatly. I hadn't seen it there before. With dread coiling in my gut, I unfolded it. 4 words, scrawled in jagged letters. Tonight. He is mine. My knees buckled. I clutched the counter, breath ragged. It wasn't just threats anymore. It was a promise. A deadline. Tonight. And I didn't know if I had the strength left to stop it. For the rest of the day, I paced the house like a prisoner. I boarded up the back door. I locked every window. I unplugged the phone. But no matter what I did, I couldn't silence the voice in my head. Not Ethan's. My own. Repeating the same question, over and over, until it drowned out everything else. What if they're right? What if it's me? What if I'm the one who hurts him? Night fell heavy, like a curtain drawn across the world. I sat rigid in the living room, a knife on the coffee table in front of me. My hands hovered just above it, shaking, as though touching it would confirm something I didn't want to believe. The note still burned in my pocket, tonight. He is mine. Every creak of the house sent a jolt of panic down my spine. I tried to stay awake, to resist the pull, but exhaustion weighed down my eyelids. I fought it, pinching my arm, pacing, splashing water across my face. It didn't matter. When the clock struck 3:01, everything went black. I opened my eyes to the sound of crunching leaves. Cold air filled my lungs. The woods. I was in the woods. Bare branches stretched overhead, skeletal against the moonlight. And my hand. My hand was clutching Robert's. He shuffled beside me, barefoot, in his pajamas. His eyes were half-lidded, vacant, as though sleepwalking. Daddy? His voice was soft, confused. My throat closed. I tightened my grip on his hand. It's okay, buddy. We're going home. But my feet didn't turn back. They kept walking forward. Toward the clearing. Toward the grave. I pulled against myself, straining to stop, to turn, to do anything. My muscles resisted, trembling as though another set of strings controlled them. I wasn't guiding Robert. Something was guiding me. Stop, I gasped, every word a war. Not this. Robert blinked up at me. Daddy, why are we here? A voice hissed inside my skull, slick and venomous. Because he belongs to me. Ethan. His presence slithered through my veins, wrapping tight around every nerve, every muscle. You brought him. Just like I asked. No, I choked. I won't. My body kept moving, dragging Robert forward. The trees parted, revealing the clearing. The earth was torn, black soil exposed like an open wound. The half-collapsed grave yawned before us. Robert whimpered. I dropped to my knees, holding him close. Don't look. Please, don't look. But his small hand pointed. At the grave. At the figure standing beside it. Ethan. Not the Ethan I remembered from college. Not even the specter that had haunted the corners of my house. This thing wore his face, but stretched and twisted, features too long, too sharp, as though someone had carved him from shadow. His eyes burned like coals, fixed on Robert. You brought him, Ethan rasped, his voice a chorus of whispers. Like a good father. Robert clung to me, burying his face against my chest. Daddy, I'm scared. I held him tighter. And Ethan smiled. I forced my legs under me, stumbling back. Stay away from him. But Ethan stepped closer, the shadows curling at his feet. You don't understand, he hissed. He isn't yours. He never was. Blood binds him to me. I froze. What? Ethan's grin widened. Why do you think he sees me? Why do you think he hears me? You feel it too, don't you? My mark. My claim. I shook my head violently. You're lying. Am I? Ethan crooned. Or have you always known? In the way he looks at you. In the way you wake with no memory, his hand already in yours. The words sliced deeper than any knife. I wanted to deny them, to scream, to shut them out. But doubt festered inside me, gnawing at my core. Was Robert mine? Or had Ethan left more than scars when we buried him in the ground? Robert whimpered again, clutching me. Don't let him take me, Daddy. Please. That snapped me back. I staggered forward, shielding him with my body. You won't touch him. You hear me? You're dead. You'll stay dead. Ethan's face twisted, his smile stretching too wide, splitting into something inhuman. Then why, he whispered, are you standing on my grave? The earth beneath my feet shifted. A tremor rippled through the ground, cracks splitting the soil around the grave. Hands, gray, rotted, shot up from the dirt, clawing at my legs. I screamed, kicking, pulling Robert back, but more hands broke through, too many, grasping, dragging. Ethan loomed closer, his voice low and guttural. You can't fight me, Victor. You are me. A white-hot rage tore through me. No. I roared, shoving Robert behind me. You'll never have him. I wrenched free from the clutching hands, grabbing the knife I didn't remember bringing. Its blade gleamed cold in the moonlight. Ethan's eyes flickered, and for the first time, I saw fear. You think steel can stop me? He snarled. I lifted the knife, my grip unshakable. Not steel. My eyes burned, tears blurring my vision. But a father can. I drove the blade into the soil, straight into the heart of the grave. The earth screamed. A deafening wail erupted around us, rattling the trees. Ethan shrieked, his form flickering, unraveling. The hands clawing at me turned brittle, crumbling to dust. Robert's small arms wrapped around my leg, anchoring me as the world seemed to shatter. Ethan's face twisted, his form collapsing into smoke. This isn't over, he hissed, voice echoing as he dissolved. He will be mine. Then silence. The clearing was empty. The grave was sealed. And Robert and I were alone. I fell to my knees, gasping, clutching Robert to my chest. His little body shook with sobs, but he was alive. Warm. Real. I buried my face in his hair, whispering over and over. I've got you. I've got you. He'll never take you. But deep inside, the echo of Ethan's words gnawed at me still. He isn't yours. And in the silence of the woods, with the grave sealed behind us, I couldn't shake the dread that Ethan was right. The woods felt 1,000 miles away by the time I carried Robert through our front door. His arms clung tight around my neck, his little face buried in my shoulder, hot tears soaking my shirt. He hadn't spoken since the clearing. Not a word. I kicked the door shut, locked every bolt, every chain, every latch I could find. Then I set him gently on the couch. The house was silent. Too silent. I crouched down, brushing his damp hair from his face. It's over, I whispered. You're safe now. Robert's wide eyes blinked at me. He didn't nod. Didn't move. Just stared. The night dragged on, heavy and oppressive. I sat awake long after Robert drifted into a restless sleep, the knife still gripped tight in my hand. Every creak of the house made my heart lurch. But nothing came. No whispers. No shifting shadows. Only silence. By dawn, I convinced myself maybe it was finished. Maybe stabbing the grave had worked. Maybe Ethan was gone. I clung to that fragile hope as the sun poured pale light across the living room. Robert woke late, rubbing his eyes. He looked pale, exhausted, as though he hadn't slept at all. "Hey, champ," I said softly. "Hungry?" He nodded faintly. I made him eggs and toast, trying to force normalcy into the morning. But when I set the plate in front of him, he didn't touch it. He just picked up the butter knife and began dragging it slowly across the table, scratching lines into the wood. "Robert," I said carefully. "Don't do that." He didn't stop. When I reached to take it, his small hand tightened around the handle with surprising strength. His eyes lifted to mine. And for just a moment. They weren't his. They were Ethan's. The knife clattered from his fingers. He blinked, dazed, looking around as though waking from a dream. "Daddy?" His voice trembled. I forced a smile. "Yeah, buddy. I'm here." He frowned, staring down at the scratches in the wood. 3 straight lines. Then one crossing through them. A tally. "1, Robert whispered. My stomach twisted. "What do you mean, 1? His little lips trembled. "One day." That's what he said. I froze. "Who said that?" Robert's voice dropped, barely audible. "Ethan." The name was like a knife in the air between us. I forced my tone calm. "You don't have to listen to him anymore. He's gone." Robert's eyes filled with tears. He shook his head fiercely. "No, Daddy. He's inside me." The words gutted me. I dropped to my knees in front of him, gripping his tiny shoulders. "No. Don't say that. You're you. You're my son." Robert looked at me with those big, terrified eyes. "But sometimes. I hear him in my head. Sometimes. I feel like I'm saying things, but it isn't me." My chest constricted, breath sharp and shallow. "Like what?" I whispered. Robert's small voice shook. "Like how he's counting down." "Counting down?" Robert nodded slowly, then held up 3 fingers. 3 days, Daddy. That's what he told me last night. 3 days, and he takes me back." My blood ran cold. I grabbed him, pulling him against me, rocking as if I could shake the truth from his words. "It's not real. He's gone. He can't hurt you anymore." But even as I said it, I knew it was a lie. Ethan wasn't gone. He had only moved closer. The day stretched into a blur of dread. Everywhere Robert went, I followed. To the bathroom, the backyard, the hallway. I never let him out of sight. But it wasn't enough. I saw him muttering to himself, lips moving silently. I saw his eyes glaze, staring off into nothing. I saw his small hand drag along the walls, tracing shapes, sigils, almost, marks I didn't recognize. And always, he whispered numbers. 3. 2. 2. 2. That night, I sat beside his bed, watching him sleep. The shadows on the walls seemed thicker, the air heavy. And then, his eyes snapped open. But they weren't his. They burned red, glowing faintly in the dark. And when he spoke, the voice wasn't his either. It was Ethan's. "You can't save him, Victor." I shot up, my chair crashing back. "Get out of him." Robert's lips twisted into a smile that wasn't his own. "He's mine. He always has been." I lunged forward, grabbing his little face between my hands. "Leave him alone." Ethan's laugh crawled from his throat. 3 days. The grave was just a door. And you opened it. Robert's body convulsed, his back arching, his mouth open in a silent scream. I held him tight, helpless, as shadows coiled along the walls, reaching, writhing. Then, just as suddenly, he went still. His eyes fluttered. His small body slumped against the pillows. And he whispered in his own voice, raw and broken. "Daddy. I'm scared." I gathered him up, rocking him, my tears falling hot against his hair. "I won't let him take you. I swear it." But even as I said it, the sound of Ethan's laughter echoed in the room. Not from Robert. Not from the shadows. But from inside me. The night stretched like a wound that refused to close. I didn't sleep. I couldn't. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Ethan's face, screaming, laughing, dragging Robert into the dirt. And worse, I heard him. Not through the walls. Not in the wind. But inside my skull. At first it was faint. A whisper in the cracks of silence. "You can't keep him safe, Victor." I shook my head, muttering to myself. "Not real. Not real. Not real." But then it grew louder. "He's mine. He's always been mine." The voice scraped across my mind, oily and thick, like something alive pressing against the walls of my brain. I pressed my palms hard against my ears. It didn't help. The voice wasn't outside. It was in me. The morning sunlight did nothing to comfort me. I stumbled into the bathroom, gripping the sink, staring at the man in the mirror. My reflection looked gaunt, hollow-eyed. Stubble shadowed my jaw. My lips trembled. And then, my reflection smiled. But I didn't. I staggered back, heart hammering. The glass rippled like water, the face on the other side twisting, stretching into Ethan's grin. "You let me out, Victor," the reflection sneered. "And now we're both wide open." I smashed my fist into the mirror. Glass shattered, blood running from my knuckles. When I looked again, only my own terrified face stared back. Robert sat at the kitchen table, pale and silent, his small hands folded tightly in his lap. On the table in front of him sat a paper, covered in black crayon scribbles. Not drawings. Numbers. Over and over. 2. 3. 4. I snatched it up, shaking. "Robert, stop this. Don't listen to him." His wide eyes lifted to mine, glistening. "I can't help it, Daddy. He's in you too now." The paper slipped from my hands. "What did you say?" Robert's lip quivered. "He told me. Last night. He said once he's finished with me, you're next." The floor tilted under me. I dropped into the chair opposite him, clutching my bloody hand. "Robert, listen to me. You're stronger than him. You can fight him. We both can." Robert shook his head, tears spilling down his cheeks. "But he's counting, Daddy. He said when it hits 0, he wins." I grabbed his hand, squeezing tight. "Not if we stop him first." His eyes searched mine. "How?" My mouth went dry. I had no answer. The second day bled into dread. Every sound of the house felt wrong. The tick of the clock too loud, like a heartbeat counting down. The shadows too thick, lingering longer than they should. And me. I was changing. I caught myself staring at Robert, not with love, but with hunger. My jaw tightened, my hands twitching as if to grab him. I snapped out of it, horrified, slamming myself against the wall, fists pressed to my skull. "No. No. You won't have me." But Ethan's laugh spilled through my head, rich and endless. "You're already mine, Victor. You just don't know it yet." That night, I locked myself in the garage. I couldn't risk hurting Robert. I sat in the dark, the air thick with gasoline and rust. Every breath was a battle. Every thought wasn't mine. "Take the knife, Victor. End it now. Save him the pain. One cut. Just one. My hand trembled toward the workbench, fingers brushing the handle of a rusted blade. I snatched my hand back, screaming. Get out. But the scream wasn't only mine. Another voice ripped from my throat, layered, guttural, too deep. Ethan's. When the door creaked open, Robert stood there, his small frame swallowed by the shadows. Daddy? I backed into the corner, clutching my head. Don't come in here. He stepped closer, tears streaming. But you're hurting. Stay back. My voice cracked, half mine, half not. But Robert didn't listen. He ran to me, wrapping his arms around me. And in that instant, the voices faltered. The shadows receded. Ethan's laugh broke into a growl. He's stronger with you. But he can't hold you both. I clung to Robert, sobbing into his hair. The truth slammed into me like a hammer. Ethan wasn't just haunting us. He was inside us. But Robert. Robert was the only thing keeping me from collapsing completely. The bond between us was the shield. But how long could it hold? That night, as Robert drifted into uneasy sleep, I sat awake, staring at the wall. 2 tally marks scratched deep into the wood. Tomorrow there would be 1. And then 0. I didn't know what would happen then. But I knew one thing. If Ethan wanted my son, he'd have to rip me apart first. And I would not go quietly. The morning didn't come gently. It tore in. I woke not in my bed, but on the floor of the living room, the air thick with the metallic tang of blood. My shirt clung wet to my chest. I sat up, dizzy, my head pounding, and froze. There were marks carved into the walls. Dozens of them. Each one a tally. Each one deep, jagged, gouged as if by claws. And across them, in dripping red. 1. My stomach lurched. I stumbled to the bathroom, yanking off my shirt. My torso was streaked in crimson, not mine. The sink filled with pink water as I scrubbed, skin raw, mind racing. What did I do? What did I do? The mirror fogged. And through the haze, Ethan's grin surfaced. You're catching on, Victor, the voice purred in my skull. You don't fight me anymore when you sleep. You become me. I smashed the mirror with my fist again. Shards rained into the sink. But the laughter clung like a parasite. Robert sat curled on the couch when I returned, his knees tucked to his chest. His eyes flicked to me, wary, terrified. Daddy, he whispered. Your hands. I looked down. The skin beneath my fingernails was black with dirt, no, not dirt. Soil. Grave soil. My chest tightened. Oh God. Robert's voice shook. You went back, didn't you? I couldn't answer. Because the truth pressed down on me like chains. I had no memory of the night before. But my body had gone to the cemetery. And something had dug. Robert crawled forward, holding a folded paper. His small hand shook as he pushed it toward me. He left this, he said. On my bed. I opened it slowly. The handwriting was jagged, wrong, almost gouged into the page. It said. The pact was never broken. Only paused. At 0, the debt is paid. And beneath it. A single, black-stained handprint. Not mine. Not Robert's. Ethan's. The air grew heavy, pressing against my chest. I dropped into the chair, paper clutched tight, staring at the words. What pact? I muttered. Robert's voice was a quiver. He told me. Last night. He said, when you were boys, you made a promise. My head snapped toward him. No, my voice was sharp. That's a lie. He's twisting you. Robert shook his head fiercely. Daddy, you swore. You swore to share everything. Forever. Even your souls. And he never forgot. The words hit like a blade in my ribs. Memories flickered. Ethan and I, 10 years old, in the woods behind the cemetery. Bloodied palms pressed together. His voice chanting words I thought were just a game. Forever bound. Never alone. Not even in death. My throat closed. We thought it was play. But Ethan had meant it. And now he was collecting. I staggered to my feet, pacing the room, tugging at my hair. There has to be a way to undo it. There has to. But the voice inside laughed, mocking. You can't break what you sealed in blood, Victor. You promised me eternity. And I came back for it. The lights flickered. Robert screamed, pointing. Daddy. Your shadow, look. I spun. And froze. On the wall behind me, my shadow moved on its own. It twisted, broke apart, reshaping into Ethan's gaunt figure. Its head lolled, neck bent too far, grin stretching from ear to ear. It waved at Robert. And then it lunged. I threw myself in front of him, shoving him back. The shadow collided with me, ice slamming into my chest, burrowing deep. My body convulsed. My jaw stretched open against my will. And Ethan's voice erupted through me. One, Victor. One more step. And then we're whole. Robert screamed, clutching my arm. Fight him, Daddy. Please. I dropped to my knees, trembling violently, my own voice shredded. I can't. But Robert's arms wrapped around me, holding tight. And for a flicker of a second, Ethan's grip loosened. That night, I tied myself to the chair. Rope biting into my wrists, ankles. I told Robert, if I move, if I try to get out, you don't untie me. He nodded, pale, silent, tears streaking his cheeks. I prayed silently as the clock ticked past midnight. And then the world tore open. The walls shuddered. The lights burned red. Every picture frame cracked, glass raining to the floor. And then, through my own mouth, Ethan's voice thundered. The last night is mine. I pulled against the ropes, flesh tearing at my wrists. My body wasn't mine anymore. My arms twisted. My legs jerked. My neck snapped side to side as if it might break. Through the blur of agony, I saw Robert standing, fists clenched, his small body trembling but his voice fierce. No. You don't get him. You don't get us. Ethan laughed through my throat, a sound like breaking bones. Child, you were never part of the pact. But now, you'll be the seal that finishes it. And in the dark, the last tally scratched itself across the wall. 0. The rope snapped. Not from me pulling. Not from struggling. It rotted away in an instant, turning black and brittle, crumbling off my wrists like ash. My arms fell free. But they weren't mine anymore. They rose without command, jerking upward as if yanked by invisible strings. My body stood. My head tilted back. My mouth stretched in a grin I couldn't stop. And Ethan's laugh poured out of me, loud, guttural, triumphant. At last. 0. The pact is whole. Robert backed against the wall, tears streaming down his face. Daddy, stop, please. My body turned toward him. Not me. Him. My hand lifted, fingers crooked like claws. I screamed from inside, trying to pull back, but it was like swimming against a riptide. Ethan's voice roared through my throat. He'll do nicely. The seal, the bond. His blood will finish what ours began. Robert's chest heaved. But instead of running, he stepped forward. His small hands balled into fists. His chin lifted. "No," he whispered, voice trembling. "You can't have him. You can't take my dad." The lights flickered violently, the whole house shaking. Ethan laughed. "Brave. Foolish. You'll be the first to go." My hand lunged for Robert's throat. But the moment I touched him, the world exploded in light. Not fire. Not electricity. Light. White-hot, searing, burning through me like holy flame. I screamed, my body convulsing. Ethan shrieked too, voice distorting into 1,000 howls. Robert's small hands pressed against my chest, and from them poured a force I'd never felt before. Not rage. Not fear. But love. Unyielding, pure, unbroken. It struck Ethan like acid. "No," he screeched. "This isn't yours. He isn't yours." But Robert's voice grew louder. "Leave my daddy alone. He's mine. Not yours." The walls split. Tally marks peeled from the plaster like skin tearing away. The shadow on the wall writhed, twisting, burning. And Ethan's face appeared inches from mine, distorted, melting, his grin finally faltering. "You can't fight this, Victor," he spat. "You bound yourself to me. You sealed it in blood. You gave me eternity." Through clenched teeth, through agony, I forced words out. "I was a child." And Robert shouted. "And he's my father." The light surged. Ethan howled, his form peeling from me like tar ripped from flesh. My body collapsed to the floor, gasping, free for the first time in months. I looked up. And saw him. Ethan. Not as he was in memory. But as he was now. Gaunt. Hollow. A corpse stitched together with hatred, towering in the living room, his form dripping shadows that scorched the carpet. His eyes burned pits of white fire. He pointed at Robert. "You'll regret this, boy." Robert trembled, but stood firm. "You can't hurt us anymore." Ethan's jaw unhinged, his scream shaking the house, shattering every bulb, ripping frames from walls. I crawled to Robert, pulling him behind me. But Ethan only laughed, voice like splintering glass. "You think love saves you? You think purity burns me away?" He leaned forward, grinning wide again, teeth stretching too far. "Love is fragile. Love breaks. And when it does, I'll be waiting. Always." With that, he lunged. And slammed into Robert. The impact knocked the boy against the wall. I scrambled forward, screaming, grabbing Ethan's wrists, except my hands passed through, burning like fire where they touched. Ethan's shadow form sank claws into Robert's chest. Not piercing flesh, piercing soul. Robert screamed, body convulsing, light flaring around him. And Ethan hissed, smoke curling from his form. "Too bright," he snarled. "But I'll smother it. I'll snuff it out." I grabbed Robert's hands, squeezing tight. "Hold on. Fight him." Through tears, Robert gasped, I can't, he's too strong." "You can." I shouted. "You're stronger than him. Stronger than me. Because you never hated him. You never hated anyone." His eyes widened. Then they narrowed with something I'd never seen before, unshakable fire. Robert screamed, light erupting from his chest, blasting Ethan backward. The specter flew into the wall, burning like paper, shrieking in fury. "No. The pact is mine. It's mine." But the light only grew, swallowing him whole. And then, silence. The house stilled. The tally marks dissolved. The lights flickered back to life. I fell to my knees, clutching Robert, sobbing into his hair. "It's over," I whispered. But the air behind me grew cold. A whisper slid against my ear. Not over. Never over. I spun. And saw it. One final mark, burned into the wall. A circle. A seal. And within it, Ethan's grin. For a moment, I believed it was finished. The tally marks had vanished. The house had stopped shaking. Robert's arms were tight around my neck, his face buried in my shoulder, both of us trembling but alive. But then I saw it. The mark. Burned deep into the plaster, black as soot, still smoldering faintly. Not a tally. Not a number. A circle. Inside it, etched as if by a hot blade, was Ethan's grin. I staggered to my feet, pulling Robert with me. He saw it too. His grip tightened painfully on my hand. "Dad," he whispered, his voice breaking. It's still here." The grin twitched. I swear to God, it twitched. The lips pulled wider, teeth scraping against the wall as if it were flesh. Ethan's voice seeped through the room, thin and sharp as a needle. "You can't burn what was carved in blood. You can't erase what was promised." The circle pulsed, glowing faintly red. A heartbeat. My stomach dropped. It wasn't just a scar. It was alive. Robert yanked at my sleeve. "We have to go. We can't stay here." But the air thickened, heavy like wet cement. The front door slammed shut, locks clicking one by one. Windows rattled. The thermostat spun until the display cracked, the air plunging into icy cold. We weren't leaving. Not until Ethan wanted us to. I tried to stay calm. I crouched down, gripping Robert's shoulders. "Listen to me. You were stronger than him before. You fought him off. You burned him." Robert shook his head violently, tears flying. I don't know what that was. "I can't do it again, Dad. I can't." "Yes, you can," I whispered, forcing my voice steady. "Because he's feeding on me." "But you? You're pure. He can't twist you the way he twisted me." Before Robert could answer, the wall split open. The circle tore wide like a mouth stretching, drywall and studs ripping apart. From inside the cavity, darkness poured, thick, viscous, almost liquid. Ethan's face pressed through, not smoke this time but something half-solid, like rotting tar shaped into his grin. His voice vibrated the air. "I told you. I'm always here. I'm in the walls, the floor, the air you breathe. You let me in, Victor. And now I'll never leave." Robert screamed, hiding behind me. I forced myself between him and the wall, heart pounding so hard it hurt. "What do you want?" I shouted. The grin widened. "What I've always wanted. To finish the pact. To make zero eternal. To feed until nothing is left but me." The tar spilled onto the floor, spreading like oil, tendrils crawling toward us. Where it touched, wood sizzled and rotted instantly. Robert clutched my arm. "Dad, it's going to eat the house." He was right. The shadows crept like wildfire, blackening furniture, warping the floorboards. I dragged Robert backward, scanning desperately for something, anything. And then I remembered. The attic. The box. The journal. If Ethan had come from my blood pact, maybe his weakness was in those pages too. "Come on," I hissed, pulling Robert toward the stairs. We bolted, the tar snapping tendrils after us like whips. One lashed across my leg, searing through denim, burning flesh. I bit down a scream and kept running. Up the stairs, two at a time, Robert clinging to me. Behind us, the house groaned as if it were alive, boards warping, glass shattering, doors slamming shut. We burst into the attic. The smell hit first: mildew, dust, old wood. And under it, that same metallic tang of blood. The box sat in the corner, right where I'd left it. But it wasn't shut anymore. It was open. And inside, the journal wasn't just sitting there. It was glowing. Robert froze. "Dad." The pages fluttered as if in a breeze, though the air was still. The writing inside burned with faint red light, words shifting like worms across paper. I grabbed it, hands trembling. The leather was hot, almost burning. Ethan's voice rattled through the beams above. "Read it. Read my words. Speak them again. Seal it tighter this time. Let me in forever." Robert shouted, "Don't. Don't read it, Dad." I slammed the book shut, chest heaving. "No," I said, my voice shaking but hard. "I'm not finishing your pact. I'm ending it." The journal convulsed in my grip, pages flapping, trying to open on their own. The attic filled with whispers, hundreds of voices chanting, tallying, counting down. Robert covered his ears, screaming. I dropped to my knees, flipping through the pages desperately, hunting for something, anything, other than Ethan's poison. And then I saw it. In the back. A page I didn't remember writing. The ink was darker, rougher, scrawled in jagged lines. But the words weren't Ethan's. They were mine. Written in my child's hand. "I want him gone. I want him never to come back. If this is the pact, then this is the end." I froze, the page trembling in my hands. Robert leaned over my shoulder, eyes wide. "Dad, you wrote that?" I shook my head slowly. "I don't remember. I don't." The whispers stopped. The house went deathly still. And Ethan roared, voice like thunder, shaking the beams. "No. No. You can't use that. It wasn't meant to be read." The journal burned in my hands, searing hot, but I clutched it tighter. Robert grabbed my wrist, adding his strength to mine. Together, we shouted the words. "I want him gone. I want him never to come back. If this is the pact, then this is the end." The house exploded in white light. Every window shattered outward. The tar on the floor shrieked, writhing, curling in on itself, burning away like paper in a furnace. Ethan's face stretched across the walls, ceiling, floor, grinning, screaming, melting all at once. "You'll regret this, Victor. You'll regret this forever. I'll find you. I'll find him." And then, silence. When the light faded, the circle on the wall was gone. The tar was gone. The tally marks were gone. All that remained was the journal, charred black, falling to dust in my hands. I collapsed, pulling Robert into my arms, both of us sobbing. For the first time, the house felt empty. Truly empty. But deep down, I couldn't shake it. The fear. The certainty. That Ethan wasn't destroyed. Only banished. And that one day, he might claw his way back. The silence was almost unbearable. For so long, every second in that house had been filled with whispers, claws against walls, the suffocating pressure of Ethan's presence. Now, the only sound was our ragged breathing. Robert's small chest rose and fell against mine, his arms still locked around my neck. "It's over, Dad," he whispered, voice hoarse. "We won." I wanted to believe him. God, I wanted to. But my eyes kept drifting to the place on the wall where the circle had been burned. It was blank now. Just cracked plaster. Still, in the back of my mind, I could almost see it. Almost hear his laughter echoing faintly, like a memory that refused to fade. The house was ruined. Walls split and scorched. Floors buckled. Windows shattered. It wasn't safe anymore. But it didn't matter. I carried Robert out the front door. For the first time in what felt like years, it opened without resistance. The night air was cold and sharp, stinging my lungs. Robert clung tighter to me as we stepped onto the porch. Behind us, the house groaned one last time, like a dying animal, and then went utterly still. We walked down the street in silence, barefoot, shivering, both of us too exhausted to speak. Neighbors peeked from behind curtains. No one opened their doors. No one called out. I didn't blame them. They'd heard the screams, the crashes, the chaos. And they'd learned long ago not to get involved. At the corner, Robert tugged my sleeve. Where are we going? I swallowed hard. Away from here. As far as we can. Will he follow? His voice was barely a whisper. I knelt down, forcing a smile I didn't feel. No, I lied. He's gone. Robert searched my face, eyes red and swollen, but he nodded. He wanted to believe. Maybe that was enough. The days blurred. We left the house behind, everything we owned still inside. I didn't care. We moved into a small apartment across town. Cheap. Bare. But clean. And quiet. For the first time in years, I woke without whispers scratching at the edge of my dreams. Robert slept through the night, no more tally marks carved into his skin. We ate breakfast together. We laughed again. Slowly, life began to stitch itself back together. I told myself it was over. I almost believed it. Until the letter came. It was a plain envelope, slipped under the door one morning. No return address. No stamp. My stomach twisted the second I saw it. I didn't want to open it. But I did. Inside was a single piece of paper. On it, scrawled in jagged black ink, was one word. 0. My knees buckled. Robert rushed over, alarmed. What is it, Dad? I crumpled the letter in my fist, shoving it into my pocket before he could see. Nothing, I said quickly. It's nothing. But my hands wouldn't stop shaking. That night, as Robert slept peacefully, I sat by the window staring out at the city lights. The letter burned in my pocket. I thought about everything, the pact, the journal, the tally marks, Ethan's face carved into the walls. We'd burned him. Banished him. But we hadn't destroyed him. And deep down, I knew the truth. You can't erase something that was born from blood. You can only hold it off. Delay it. For a time. Robert stirred in his sleep, murmuring softly, and I turned to watch him. His chest rose and fell steadily, his face peaceful. For him, I would fight again. For him, I would burn the world if I had to. But as I looked back at the city outside, the streetlights flickered. One by one. And in the glass reflection of the window, for the briefest second, I saw him. That grin. Staring back at me. Waiting. I didn't scream. I didn't look away. I just whispered into the night. I'm ready. And the grin faded. For now. Some scars never fade. Some truths never rest. And some demons, whether born of blood, betrayal, or memory, linger longer than we can ever prepare for. But survival isn't about erasing the past. It's about carrying it, and choosing to rise anyway. If this story struck a chord, share it. If you've ever faced your own battles in silence, let your voice be heard in the comments below. And if you want more tales where pain meets justice, and truth always claws its way to the surface, subscribe to Twisted Truths. Because the stories may end here, but the echoes never die.